Welcome to Mr. Podcast with Claude.
And Justin.
Hey, we're back after several thousand years, and
You missed us. We're a little older and a lot wiser.
hey, make no promises, please, Justin.
No? Okay, sorry.
We're definitely older. The wiser part is TBD.
Okay. We'll find out. You
Yeah,
decide.
you decide. Write us and let us know if we're wiser. um, we are back. We're talking about the hottest new movie of April 2025, Sinners.
Sizzling hot. That's right.
Yeah.
2025.
Yeah.
Woo!
You can fry an egg on that sidewalk. Yeah, it's
That's
hot.
the year cinema broke again.
Keeps breaking, keeps repairing, keeps breaking. So I am mobile. I'm walking around. You might hear weird noises. You might hear low audio quality because I'm on my headset on my phone. So that's the context there. I'm already out of breath. So Justin, tell us what we're talking about today. I catch my breath.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hey, I'm sitting in one place on a traditional microphone setup, so I should sound perfectly crystal clear as I explain to you. What am I doing? Yeah, so we're talking about Sinners, the latest Ryan Coogler joint, featuring the acting stylings of Michael B. Jordan.
Yes.
And it's like a period horror uh movie, horror action, I guess I would call it. Period horror action, 30s setting. It's got, it's got all kinds of stuff. We're gonna talk about it. I won't even tell you what it's got. You need to listen.
Well, hopefully they've seen this movie, so
No,
they know we're going to talk about spoilers,
no,
and they know, and
no,
they know what it's
no,
got.
no. That's not how this works.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, don't watch the movie. Only listen to our podcast. That's good enough.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
okay. From listening to Mr. Podcast, which I've done a little bit of lately, okay, I know what the rules are, and the rules are that we don't warn about spoilers. But and then we talk about the whole movie, and then at the end of the podcast, we say we recommend that they see it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I love that there's rules to this. This feels like a Scream sequel. Where somebody knows, or Final Destination, where they think they know what the rules are, and then of course by the end of the movie they're proven wrong.
They're wrong. They're always wrong. Yeah, no, you're right. We could do a new formula. I just want to make sure we knew what the established formula was.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
We want to do something different. We can, I guess, but I don't know. Do you want to mess with a formula that's proven successful?
Well, listen, this formula made us billionaires, so I think why change it? We just need one more billion, guys. We need one more billion. We want to buy something.
I can't believe how many. I have listened to so many podcasts at the end. I'm like, yeah, it's a good one. You should go check it out. And it's like, who is even listening to this? Like, why would you? Who is that for? It's like, it makes no sense. I don't get it. You know what? Guess what? I can learn. Anyone can learn. I can learn.
There it is.
I mean, I'll get into the finer points here of what I thought about it, as far as I remember, at least. But I think it's at the very least worth a watch. It's interesting. It's not a fucking remake or proven IP or a biopic or it's like this is whatever issues I had with it, if there was more movies like this, I would be happy. So I think it'll be worth your time. And I think in a way, like, the less you know, the better. That's how I went in. I had no idea what was about to go down, and so it definitely caught me off guard in a lot of ways, because I just it's not obvious where it's going, I think. if you don't already know. So anyway, treat yourself to that, and then
Mhm.
scurry on back and turn this on.
Why are they scurrying?
I don't know. That seemed like the right word. I don't know. What do you say?
Okay. I don't know. Walk. I don't know. Why the scurry? It's a in particular verb. Yeah. So listen, I had seen the trailer for this a while ago. The teaser trailer, I should say, and then the big
Oh,
difference I think between the teaser trailer and the subsequent trailers is they don't make it clear where the horror is coming from. In terms of
ah,
the villainous characters, and
yeah,
so. I was really excited. I'm a big Ryan Coogler fan. Black Panther is one of my favorite movies of all time. He has a unique voice. He has made me a Michael B. Jordan fan. Like I've always liked Michael B. Jordan, but I think they have a synergy that's really interesting. And he's become his muse. Clearly, he's been in all
mm-hmm,
of his films. And so I was excited. I did get spoiled a little bit in terms of, what we might call the V word.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay,
so I did unfortunately know that going in, but that's kind of all I knew besides what the teaser showed, which is, this sort of gritty Southern crime drama about these brothers, and then this sort of horror element coming into play with some obvious, racial commentary tones to it.
yeah,
And so, yeah, I saw it in the IMAX here. Not the top tier IMAX. That's only 8 in the whole country, the 70 millimeter IMAX, but the
right,
second tier IMAX, which has some of the scenes shown in the big format, and it was amazing. It was really well done. I think the IMAX did help a bit. I think more than just the screen format, I would say the clarity of the picture was really apparent because I did see the movie a second time at a regular theater showing it in, I guess, probably digital 35 or something.
yeah, yeah,
And it was significantly more grainy. It was significantly less interest. Like it just didn't pop on the screen. So I
yeah,
will say if you can get to an IMAX in any quality, go do that. And if you are at one of the 8 in the country that has the 70 millimeter, definitely go do that. It reminds me when I saw um, Tarantino's
oh,
Hateful Eight, the
yes,
70 millimeter roadshow version, and it was an experience, man. It did the thing. I was like, this is okay. And then I saw the movie again in the regular, and I was like, it does there is something different. It is a tangible difference. So if you're
yeah,
wondering, hey, is it worth it? Do I need to go to an IMAX? I would say if you think you're going to like the film, if it's the kind of movie you like, if it's, the actors or director that you like, if you're already bought in a little bit, then yes, just go do it. If you're on the
yeah.
fence and an IMAX is far away, then, take your chance. But I do think it helps to do that. So Justin, what's your before we get into more detailed discussion, what's your number rating or your Roger Ebert 4-star rating? Where do you, whichever numeric rubric you want to use,
What's
out of
yeah,
10 or 4 stars, or what do you give
yeah,
it? That way we
yeah.
can figure out how wrong you are.
I'm gonna give it a letter grade.
Oh God, professor over here.
Yeah, it's just easier for me, a little more room to breathe.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And to like give like my yeah, I feel like it conveys something that those other systems don't. But yeah, I think maybe it is just my
Fair.
personal bias. But anyway, yeah, I think probably for me and it's worth saying, I mean these are I got to preface these are um I can't just say it. No, I
No,
just
you can't.
I want to make sure I clarify that this is like, it's like my personal bias. Like there's certain aspects of this that are just not in my personal wheelhouse of movie stuff that is my favorite thing, and
Sure.
so it's not a movie that's like perfect for me really, so just bear that in mind. But I think in terms of my own personal enjoyment, and again, also caveat, like this is on a scale with like all movies of all time, right? Like if we're
Okay.
talking like, of the last 10 new movies I've seen, like I'd probably rate it higher. But
Gotcha.
anyway,
Gotcha.
just to with all that said, I think it's probably somewhere like something like a B. I think that's what I would give it.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Depending on
Listen,
the
I think,
scenes, like in a way I feel like
yeah.
it was like the first half was like B plus, A minus, but the
Okay.
second half I was leaning more like B minus, C plus, so I'm kind of
Gotcha.
taking the average.
Okay. I buy that. That makes sense to me. I think, particularly on the scale of all movies of all time, I think
Yeah,
you know that's a lot of movies and a lot of, obviously not a lot, but all of the great movies. So
yeah.
that makes
And
sense to me. Go ahead.
like also like other movies that are doing something like this, like From Dusk Till Dawn is like a really obvious
Sure.
comparison point because it's also a movie that starts with gangster drama that
Yeah.
turns into a vampire siege story,
Ah,
you know
spoiler alert. I haven't seen it yet.
is it too late? I mean,
It's
too
too
early to
late. It's too early. It's both too early and too late. Never spoil ever.
spoil
No.
1990 whatever sixes From Dusk Till
Will
Dawn,
you
like, all
will you
right.
give me a chance to see it? I haven't had a chance yet. That's only been decades, and I also have seen it. Um, yeah. So I mean, for me, I wouldn't want to use a letter grade necessarily, or really necessarily say of all movies of all time, because that I would need another hour to dissemble or digress on
Yeah.
why.
And I need to see it
why
again really
like
to like fully form my
yeah.
opinion, honestly. But
Yeah.
anyway, go
Yeah.
ahead.
I would give it, what I would want to instinctively do is to give it a rating out of 10. I would give it a
Sure.
9 out of 10, perhaps a
Woo!
9.5 out of 10.
Woo!
Yeah, it's up there
That's in the A
because of
range for me.
it's in the A range. Yeah, I definitely, if letter grade wise, I would say an A. It's one of those things where if the student had been good the whole semester, I might give it an A plus just because
Hmm.
of that student, but I think on the
Yeah.
merits by itself, I'd say A.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm like, if they need this little extra push. They really does. They
Sure.
really, whatever.
They put
But
in the work. Yeah.
they put in the work. They're
Yeah.
bringing something different to the class every time or whatever. And here's my
Yeah.
chance to give them a little bonus. Yeah, so that's how much I liked it. I've seen it twice. Like I said, I want to see it a third time. I think I don't often rewatch movies. Number one, when I do, if something I really like, I rewatch immediately. I can get a sense of how many more rewatches before I suck everything out of it that's worth
Yeah.
seeing. And I think I could watch this at least two more times before I need a break.
Okay.
I think at
Yeah.
least two more times before I need a break. The second watch, I was just as enthralled, actually more enthralled because I knew where the story was going. A
Yeah.
lot of the impactful scenes I thought hit harder. The things that I noticed but didn't have time to sit with, you get that time on a second watch because you're not thinking about, this one thing you just heard. You're thinking about the thing that just happened. So you go, oh wow, okay, that's crazy, and I can
Yeah.
give some examples of that. But overall, I'm surprised, man. I did not expect to like it as much as I did. I had no idea. It reminds me of how I felt about Get Out when I first saw it, where I
Hmm.
thought I'm watching something I didn't expect to ever see. I didn't know I wanted to see this. And the
Yeah.
thing that it has, so listen, I haven't seen all of Ryan Coogler's movies. I haven't
Me either.
seen Fruitvale Station,
Nope. Me either.
and I haven't because I didn't really want to see a sad story that's based on reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen the Rocky movies because I don't care about the Rocky franchise and I don't care about boxing.
Oh, he did those.
He
Okay.
did the
Okay.
Creed movies,
The
I should say.
Creed. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and so, but I will revisit them now that I'm firmly in the Coogler Jordan fan club.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep. Yeah.
but what his movies do that has consistently done, the ones I've seen, of course, that Jordan Peele's movies haven't done is two things. One is the rewatchability.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to rewatch Jordan Peele movies, no matter how
Yeah.
good they've been. I'm not eager to rewatch them. I'm not eager to live in that world. I'm not eager to revisit the really interesting parts. They sit with you in a way that's nice and worthy or whatever. But I'm like, I don't need to go watch. I've only seen Get Out once.
Yep.
I've only seen Us once.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll only watch Nope again to analyze it to discuss other films or something. I'm not trying to go back to Nope for Nope's sake. And I liked a lot of
Sure.
Nope. That's not even, I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I liked a lot of
Yeah.
it. The other thing Coogler movies are doing that most filmmakers in general, black filmmakers even, is as a black person, when I watch his movies, I leave feeling uplifted as a black person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it is a very
Not
particular
nothing.
thing, and I say that, I'm trying to, Spike Lee doesn't do that for me.
Mm-hmm.
John Singleton. I'm trying to think of other
Yeah.
black directors. Like their movies can be great. You can feel uplifted in that you're watching a movie from a great black filmmaker or a movie
Sure.
with a great black cast or producers, product is production designers, costume directors, whatever. You can tap into that excellence and feel something about it, but there's a secondary level that I have only really seen a few times, and mostly in critical movies, that he adds something else to it. He leaves you feeling cool and special and seen in a way that I think is partially why people are talking about this movie so much, because what I felt after seeing Sinners is what I felt after Black Panther, you know.
Yeah.
And it's got and I honestly think there's a case to be made. I might write something about this, that Sinners is a comic book movie. It's just a very, very grounded
100%
comic book
agree.
movie.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I consider it. I think about it like, if you think about the Marvel movies, it's kind of like the twins are like Captain America and Bucky Barnes. You
Yeah.
know, they're a little bit larger than life,
Yep.
but not so much compared to the rest of the world, right? There's bigger forces than and more powerful forces in the world than them.
Yeah.
But these guys are obviously an army background for both of them, or for both groups of guys, but struggling to find their sort of superpower or find their way in the world and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm curious to see him, if Ryan ever talks about if his approach to the movie changed because he had written some superhero movies and he knows
Yeah.
how to take that.
Yeah. The influence is very clear. I feel
Uh,
like it's at least like in the background if it wasn't something he was consciously trying to do.
mhm.
Um
Mhm.
and I think actually that goes along with what I was saying earlier, that like that's not really my favorite kind of movie, so I think that's
Mhm.
partially like going against my bias. Like, so yeah, like Do the Right Thing is one of my favorite movies ever, but yeah, uplifting's not the word. I mean, it's kind of a tragedy. Like
Yeah.
like that, I wouldn't. It's
Yeah.
definitely don't go to it for that. I mean, that's a great
Yeah.
movie, but you know,
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and most of his movies I think are like that, where you appreciate the storytelling and being in that world and being with those black characters and the black stories from a black storyteller perspective, but you don't feel energized about
yeah,
yourself as a black
no,
person.
no, very
And
much the opposite.
I was gonna say John Ridley with 12 Years a Slave.
Yes,
You don't go watch that going, yes, You know, like
Well,
there's just a thing.
that's even worse than do the right
Yeah,
thing, but
I
yes.
know.
Like Jesus.
You know what I
That's
mean?
like torture. Like that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I couldn't bring myself to
yeah,
watch it. It's like that's like Schindler's List, or
yeah.
there's those movies where it's just like
Yeah.
I can't even. I have a tolerance for a certain amount of misery on screen, but there's a limit.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
do the right thing is on the right side of that limit, but
Mhm, mhm.
yeah, I 12 Years a Slave, I was like, yeah, oh, I could watch that,
That's,
but I just, oh god, it doesn't.
call me when it's like 3 years a slave.
Yeah,
Like, can you give me a
seriously,
little bit less of the slave? That's too long.
it's way
Too
too
long.
long.
Yeah.
It's way too long. Yeah, there's no way. So yeah, I get that. I mean, it's funny because like in a sense there is like a tragic element to the story,
Oh
even
yeah.
if you do feel sort of uplifted, and there is a
Mhm.
victory, there is a kind of victory
A
in
kind of
there,
victory. Yes.
but yeah, if you really think about it, it is like kind of a massacre that happens.
Well, yeah, and it's a tragedy and a victory all at once, and I think that's what I really appreciate about the film is the nuance, right? Like the ending, how they wrap up the storytelling in the ending, and particularly in terms of what we're talking about with the tragedy part and the victory part is there's the tragedy that everybody dies,
Yeah.
and the people who don't die, Smoke and Mary, who technically did die, but
Yep.
they live on as vampires.
Right.
So everybody dies, tragedy. But
Yeah.
the victory is that it's revealed. I guess it's Smoke talking, but sorry, yeah, Smoke talking. And I'm probably gonna say the wrong twins' names at some point during this podcast for sure
Oh my God, I will too.
if I
Yes.
haven't already. And so,
I
but
think
but
you're
when he
right.
talks about yeah, but when he talks about the time that he felt freedom was that last sunset he saw with his brother.
Hmm.
And I thought that was so poignant because here's two guys who spent their entire life trying to find freedom, right? They had this oppressive traumatic childhood with their abusive father. They left that. They went to war, saw trauma in war, of course. And then they went to Chicago to try to make it big and obviously got into some gangster stuff there,
Hmm.
but they tried to use money in different locations to find freedom. And then of course their next version of freedom was going to be building this juke joint, a for us by us juke joint and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, once this dream had been murdered, it was that moment of him with his brother that he realized was freedom. And it's
Hmm.
and it's a thing that I think m- what I like thematically the movie might be trying to say is freedom is something you can only appreciate in hindsight. That you might be free in the moment and not even know it.
Yeah.
Or that freedom is something that it is appreciable in compare to something else, right? And so I thought that was really, and then the other freedom was Stack's freedom when he died, you know, and went to be with Annie and the baby. That was
Yeah.
his freedom. His soul getting to move on, in that powerful way. So I thought, yeah, the movie's a tragedy, but both brothers got to taste freedom. Sammy got to taste a certain kind of freedom by leaving the plantation and the sharecropping life behind and going to fulfill his musical dreams and things like that. But then they lost. He lost Pearline. And all their other
Yeah.
friends in that place died and stuff like that. So it's both, and I think that's one of the things that is remarkable about the movie to me is that it's deep. You know what I mean? It's not everything isn't just on the surface. It's not like, oh, it all worked out, they all survived, or oh no, it's a tragedy, everybody died and nobody got anything that they wanted.
Hmm.
It exists in that middle ground which I think is where what life is all about, right? Is that middle ground between how you feel about the circumstances that you're in. And in hindsight, you go, shit, that was freedom when we had that thing. I didn't even think about it. I would, they were focused on the money. They were focused on the power. When in reality, it was just that brief moment of being with your loved one, or being with your brother, or being with whomever, your family, and then boom, there's your freedom.
Yeah.
And it's not even you weren't even looking for it that way. So I love that stuff. I think the movie did is it's just it doesn't have to be as interesting as it is. It could have just been, hey, let's watch some black people kill KKK members in the 30s,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
KKK members who are vampires, right? That would have been an easy thing to do. Like they didn't even do
Yeah,
that. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like that wasn't even the direct
It
conflict.
was it was like it was like it almost wanted to do that, but that's not actually what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, okay, cool, man. Yeah, so yeah, anyway, when after I saw it, I of course told you you need to go see it and
Yep.
not to spoil yourself with anything, because I do think it probably plays a lot better when you don't expect the vampires.
Yeah.
Um and in terms of the editing and the plotting in the movie, I'm a big uh um I don't know how to phrase it. I'm against. I don't like movies that start with flash forwards.
Me too.
I almost never think it's warranted. Now, as a writer, I understand that if you have a genre movie, and the genre that you're in, the elements of that genre are not going to be on screen for a while, then I think
Hmm.
it's okay to have your opening scene make it clear to the audience what kind of movie it is, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a horror movie and you're going to have a long act one that doesn't have any horror scenes, then I think it's okay to start the movie with the first scene having that horror. The audience understands the genre that they're in. Now, it doesn't mean you need a flash forward, but I think that
Yeah.
is at least appropriate. And so when I saw the movie the first time, I was like, "Oh God, flash forward, really?" Like that. Nothing demoralizes me more in a first scene than
Yeah.
the flash forward, because I'm like, "Okay, now I have to sit and wait till we come back to this." And now I
Yeah.
don't think I'm like, "Do you even have the confidence of your story? Because your story should be good from the beginning, like the organic beginning, not an artificial
Yeah.
beginning." But what I will say, having watched it a second time, is I actually think it's starting with the flash forward. I think actually was successful, because what I felt like it gave was a sense. Well, it gave a bookend, kind of, beginning and ending structurally to the whole movie, which I thought worked. But what I thought it kind of gives in a sort of elusive way is this feeling that, but between when we see Sammy in the first scene at the beginning of the movie, and when we come back to Sammy, because there's a big dramatic question for him is, are you going to put the guitar down? Are you going to leave the music behind? Are you going to accept Jesus or whatever? Like that's the question posed to him in the beginning. And so the whole movie, you're thinking that's the overall question for the whole movie. What's he gonna do when we get back to the scene? So when we get back to the scene and we've seen everything that's happened to him and the twins and all their friends and all the horrors of that night, now we're back to that question, that same question from the beginning. I think it actually has a lot more weight, because it was almost like we got to see his thought process, right? in Over the 2 hours of the movie, we got to see him question, "Oh shit, am I going to put this down after everything I just went through?" And
Yeah.
really, because the question from the father is like, the preacher father is like, "This music is evil," So it's really Sammy having to decide, is the music actually evil? And you think that the father was proven right, because some evil did show up.
Yeah.
And you think, well, Sammy, clearly, I mean, you just lost your cousins and you just lost your friends, and like clearly you have to put the guitar down. And then I think when he doesn't, spoiler alert, that's when I was like, okay, I think this flash forward thing actually worked, because the answer to that structural framing was different than you expect. I think if he was gonna put the guitar down, then I think having that flash forward is less powerful. But the fact that he actually doesn't and he says, "Fuck it, yeah, some evil shit came, but I prefer this music." I'm gonna take this and run and continue with my dream. Like I thought that actually really worked. And I think it leaves a lot to be said about the character, though. What did he really think about the stuff that happened, and why was he so sure that it wouldn't happen again, or that he'd be able to deal with it if it happened again?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, lots more to say, but I'll let you jump in here.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, as far as the flash forward thing, like, yeah, I mean, I think it works fine. I've seen that kind of thing a lot, and I've definitely seen worse versions of it. But I
Yeah.
think you still could have had something like a bookend. So I think the harder problem, I mean, the thing is, like, it's not even really a horror scene. Like, it's
Mhm.
implied that he's gone through something, right? Because he comes in and he's bloody and the guitar's broken, and so
Mhm.
like something crazy happened, right? But it's not like you really see anything, you
Well, they
know?
cut. They have flashes. They have flashes of the horror that they cut to during
Oh,
that
there's
scene.
flashes in there.
Yeah, there's
See,
flashes. You
this
don't
is
know
where I
what
need
they
to see it
are.
again.
Yeah,
Okay.
you don't know what they are, but it's flashes of the vampires, flashes of Rimic, flashes of the horror. Yeah, are intercut in that scene. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. 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 So that's how they're getting that in there. Because I'm
Yeah.
thinking, you know, like I like really, at least for me, like that because of the title and because of the place it started, like I thought that aspect of the story would play a bigger role overall. I feel like you could have, like, just
What happened?
specifically like Sammy's father being this preacher,
Oh yeah,
and saying like that
yeah,
music is the devil's music and you need to
yeah,
give that up and it's going to lead you down a dark path and all that, like
yeah,
I think you could have had that scene happen not as a flash forward, like in,
yeah,
and still have like a bookend effect by having him walk in at the end,
yeah.
and like that still could have worked, but like then the horror thing doesn't quite happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Because
Which
he could have, yeah, they could have had a scene where he's practicing the gospel music he's going to play, and then he decides to throw in a little blues, and the father says, "No, no, 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 we're not going to have any of that devil music up in here. You know,
yeah,
you should put that, you need to focus on the gospel music. When you come to play to church tomorrow, you better make sure you're playing the Lord." So yeah, they
yeah,
could have had a bookend about the church and the father and the music, but
yeah,
you don't get the horror element without it being literally him showing up moments after sunrise, from the night of the massacre.
yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, like I'm thinking through. I wish I remember how From Dusk Till Dawn starts. I actually don't remember because I feel like it
Mhm.
doesn't do that, but I don't actually remember how it starts. Anyway, uh, just in terms of like a lot of classic horror, like it'll be a flashback, giving
Yeah,
some
yeah, yeah,
backstory, and that's a horror sequence. That's pretty common. Um, or it'll be in the present, but it'll be like, more like a foreboding scene, like nothing actually happens, but it's like
yeah.
hinting at what's coming. I think they could have done a scene like that potentially, but maybe that's a weird place to start. um like basically have a scene with the vampires earlier, I guess, that like
Mhm.
that could have brought in the horror, and then you go to Sammy with his father, and whatever. I don't need to rewrite the movie for him, but I
Yeah.
feel like in general, I don't like I don't like sitting through a whole movie going like, okay, well, he's gonna go back to that church at some point.
Yeah,
Like, I kind of wish it wasn't boxed in like that. I mean, some stories, I mean, I famously like certain stories that have done that exact device.
yeah,
So obviously I'm not immune to it, but
yeah,
I do find sometimes disappointment in like knowing what an endpoint is gonna be.
yeah,
And so yeah, I think personally I'd rather not have it, but it obviously requires, I mean, it does a job,
yeah,
and if you're gonna take it out, you have to, it requires some serious work to like replace it to function
yeah.
the same way. So
Yeah,
anyway,
and
points taken.
I think, yeah, and I think a reason that it actually works in hindsight to me is that it actually propels the story forward because the story is not over once we get back to that scene. Number one, like I said, it answers the main dramatic question for Sammy: is he going to drop the music? Does his objective reality, having seen evil come at him from his music, playing the blues, is that going to convince him that his dad was right and he should stop the music? Uh,
Right.
and so that I think works well. And then the fact that the story continues on through the post credits, to where it becomes Sammy's story. Like you think it's a story about the twins, but it's really Sammy's story, and it
Yeah.
continues on. It answers that question. No, he's not going to stop the music. He's going to seek his freedom from, the sharecropping and all that stuff, and that environment, and keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
And so I think it works because it wasn't just a gimmick. It wasn't just an easy way to get into the plot or anything like that. They actually used it on a character level and a plot level that I think actually made it work. But I
Yeah.
agree. Usually it doesn't help because usually it's just, oh, we want some action here, and the action's not
Yeah.
going to come for a while. So we'll start with a flash forward to at the midpoint action scene, or oh, we don't have any horror for a while, so we'll start with a grisly murder and then cut to 24 hours before, and it's just like,
Right.
oh god, now we have to
Yeah.
wait for the slow pacing until we get to this thing. But
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yes. No, totally. But yeah, I don't know, I was totally with it. The whole like setup, all that stuff. Like
yeah,
I was like, it's like, have you ever seen Big Night? Like that movie
mm-mm.
from the 90s? Like
Right.
it was like kind of having that vibe for me. Like where it's like this movie that's about like doing this big,
Oh,
you
yeah, yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
one
One
big
big thing.
celebration, and
Yeah,
we see all the preparation,
yeah,
and then we get into like the actual thing happening,
yeah.
like I was on
Oh, I
board
like
just
stuff
for
like that.
that, you
Yeah, and
know.
what's interesting about that is, and I think this actually helped a lot in how the ending worked, is that they saved all of those scenes, all those shots of them setting up for the party that would normally be at the beginning of Act Two. They saved all of that stuff to the end when it's about their memories of that time, right? So all the shots of people arriving at the juke joint, of them getting the food ready, like all of that
Yeah,
setup, you don't actually see the setup scene. They just
yeah,
cut from, getting everybody that they need for the juke joint, and then they cut to opening night,
it's
and they skip
happening.
over all
Yeah,
of that. Yeah, and I didn't catch that they did that until the end when they showed those scenes of like, because now it's the memories of these people, right? And Miss Lee showing up, and Bo and Annie and all the people showing up for the juke joint and for the party. It was like, oh, okay,
yeah,
now and so it was cool that like those scenes were shot, and they were used for a dramatic purpose, and it wasn't just the typical Hollywood story structure, because that stuff would have been in the beginning of Act Two when they're
yeah,
getting everything set up, and there would have been, oh, we don't have enough fish for the fish fry, or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah,
where who's got the bottles of beer, and oh, they're not, we need more ice for the thing, and oh,
yeah,
make sure it looks like this because they're gonna have this, and
yeah.
all that stuff that we've seen a million times.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was settling in for that, and in a way, I'm like, I wish I had seen those scenes, but also I'm like,
Mhm.
no, because if you're gonna cut him in at the end, please don't show them to me because one of my least favorite things is when a movie
Yes.
cuts to some shit from earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, please
And
don't
I
do
think
that.
it's a really good example of how, and I think again, this is one of the reasons I really love the ending is they cut to stuff we didn't see before. Like
Yeah,
the shot of the brothers seeing the last sunset, that's not a shot that we saw before. That's not a moment we're revisiting a second time. You
yeah,
know, when we're seeing him say that was my moment of freedom, it's revealed to us. We didn't see that shot before. We didn't know they had that moment of them together right before the big adventure with this opening night at the juke joint. And they did that with several, some of the scenes of them driving, in the car and stuff was like, oh, we didn't see that before. And I just thought that was really cool. And the other thing it gets at is it makes it feel like, because, Stack is about to die and all this stuff, is like it gets at the idea of this is his life flashing before his eyes and he's revisiting all of these moments, and it puts us in his, the twins, particularly his perspective
yeah,
with all that. And I thought that made it more powerful that we're getting to see this dying man's, life flash before his eyes and his recognition of like what were the important moments and things like that. And so yeah, I just thought that was so well done editing wise to show us scenes we hadn't seen before because it circumvented that horrible trope of, hey, remember that scene from an hour ago?
yeah,
Well, now that the movie needs to be emotional, let's show you that scene again.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, but I already saw that,
yeah,
or revealing information through showing us, revisiting a previous scene and all that kind of stuff, which can
yeah.
be really obnoxious.
Yeah, yeah. As I think about it, I think like I mean the way they did it is fine, but I think like it could have maybe worked for me to show like not all those scenes, but just the sunset thing. Like I think
Hmm.
it could have worked to sit with them watching the sunset, not really
Sure.
understanding the significance, and then like when they talk about it later, don't cut to it. Like as long as you don't cut to it and you just talk
Gotcha.
about
It's one
it.
or the other. It's one or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like that could have worked too. Like I would have been happy to like kind of sit with a moment like that, not and then like on a rewatch you kind of understand the
Yep.
significance more than you did the first time, you know? So I don't know that I think that could have, but yeah, I mean the way they did it is definitely better than the like let's cut back to it and fond memories. Remember when
Yeah.
that thing
Yeah.
happened and like yep, I do. I've been sitting here. You
Yes, I
don't
was
have to
watching it
remind
too.
me.
Yeah.
Like that just that drives me crazy. It's just
Yeah.
like trust your audience a little bit. Anyway, so yeah, it is interesting. I wonder. I really wanted to get the script. I wanted to know
Yeah.
exactly like what the original thing was that this came from and like how much was moved around or like things
Yeah.
happen in
Yeah.
production. Because yeah, I'm curious about stuff like that. What was there a thought of having that earlier, or was it always intended that we would skip all
Mhm.
that and then just put it as memories at the end?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I'd love to see the script to see where those scenes were. Was it an editing thing at the, in post that they decided to do,
Yeah,
or was it originally in the script to have that stuff come as
yeah,
a, chronologically earlier? So,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I
um,
also want to see it just to like make sure I caught all the details because I know I
yeah,
missed some. Like what
there's a
you
lot.
just said. You said there were cuts in at the beginning. I didn't even remember that. So
Yeah, yeah.
anyway. That's
Um,
the pitfalls of seeing a movie one time, especially for
yeah,
me, you know. Anyone who listens to Jacket Jockeys will know that one of my weaknesses is catching things on the first time. Like Jenny always catches everything the first time. That's kind of an
yeah,
exaggeration, but it's pretty true. And like, but
yeah.
I need at least two or
Yep.
three to like catch every single thing because I get distracted in some weird way and I'm thinking about
Mhm.
something else and I'm just not like paying attention to the right thing sometimes. So
Yeah, yeah.
anyway, there was a lot
Uh,
going on.
So yeah, let's talk about the characters. Because I thought, that there's 4 or 5 or 6 prequel or sequel ideas I could think from this movie, and I think that is also something I thought was pretty rare. That the characters in the world was so well drawn that it just invited more story. And I'm not usually a person that wants to see more. Like the whole idea of like that Alfred series about Alfred Batman's butler and about him
Yeah.
before. I'm like, I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
It's called Pennyworth or whatever. Then like the Commissioner Gordon prequel series. Like I don't really care about characters before they became the interesting version that necessitated them being in the origin story.
Yeah.
But I think Smoke and Stack. I think Michael B. Jordan just made them come to life in a way that I haven't seen those characters before. And I want to see more of them. I think the idea of following these two guys with first of all, their traumatic bringing. I mean, the fact that their mother was sick and that Mary's mother had to nurse them, like, wow, because their mother was too sickly, I guess, or whatever the story is, to take
Yeah.
care of them. So that's part of the bond that they have with Mary and that family is their mother took such good care of them, like they were her own. But then that the whole thing with the childhood trauma, the abusive father, who they ran away from, and had this sort of like question, right? Like that comes into play in the movie at a certain point. Is one of the characters says like, we went to another town, but they ran us out because they thought our dad was evil, and they thought, well, the apple doesn't far from the tree. And you get this theme of like, do the twins feel like the evilness of their father is in them too? And I feel like part of the answer is yes, because they decided to live like sinners, right? And they
Yeah.
said, well, we're just going to do what we're going to do to try to survive and get freedom. And so I think all of that is super interesting as a childhood origin, and then getting to like World War. These two guys in World War I. Let's go! Like I want to see Coogler do a Dunkirk style, Saving Private Ryan style, big budget World War I movie, focusing on the black soldiers that were in World War I. There's this famous group called the Harlem Hellfighters. They could tie that into it. That's historically accurate. But like I want to see those guys go into World War I and go to Europe and all these places and have their minds blown, and then they understand war and understand freedom and understand sacrifice. And one of the things I thought would be really cool is, in the movie Sinners, when they go and get the truck full of the bootleg liquor, they open up the back and there's a snake in the back that startles Sammy, right? But
Yeah.
like the twins are like kind of ready for the snake, and they have this kind of twin synergy thing where, one tosses the other a knife and he expertly kills the snake. Like I want that scene to be in this World War I movie, but they it's before they know how to take care of a snake like that. It's before
Mm-hmm.
they know how to work as a unit, as one team, right? And be that slick and be that confident, where the snake comes out and one of them gets bit and he's like, you should have done this. No, you should have done that. And now I got bit. And so basically that would be a callback to this scene where like, this is why those guys knew how to take care of that snake because they saw this, in their travels overseas or whatever, or they had this experience. But I want to see the World War I movie with them in it. And then I want they come back and then talk about all the stuff with know war heroes coming back not getting any we know that that's not going to go that well because they leave. But like I think that's a whole interesting like plot. I think I'm just going on a tangent now about prequels and sequels, but like the Native American vampire hunter posse, come on, please. I'm here for it
That was a
all day
wild
long.
thing to throw in for one scene.
Yeah. I One of the things I thought that I was going to give the movie negative points for was the fact that they never came back because they were so cool and interesting. But because the movie takes place every single night and they explicitly went home to shelter for the night to stay indoors, there was actually no way for them to really come back like reasonably for the plot. So I thought, okay, it's okay they didn't come back, even though everybody wants them back because they were fucking cool as shit. Like they just showed up, and you're like, yes, give me more of these people. And like the whole like the three vultures or condors or whatever that was circling the house when they got there, I was like, oh man, please tell me like they were able to like, part of the mythology of these characters is that you know, they train these vultures to hunt vampires with them because vultures follow death, and things like that. Like I'm like, oh man, like there was just like for such a little scene that they were in, I was like, I will watch a whole TV show about these people, and then what is their intersection with the lore of vampires, right, with their own Native American mythology and lore and stuff, and how do they contextualize what's happening here? Like I thought that's cool. Anyway, just in terms of the characters, though, I thought, upon a second rewatch, what I felt was like the confidence of the movie pulling off what it pulls off to whatever degree you think it pulls it off. I think is in that first shot of Smoke and Stack. I think when you first see them, and they're the coolest, dapperest motherfuckers you've ever seen on screen, and just ready for what's about to come. And it's Michael B. Jordan playing these two characters, but it feels real. The optics, it feels like there's two people in the scene. I was like, okay, the movie's gonna work. This is when I think, and sort of in hindsight, seeing a second time, I'm like, okay, this is when I think I was like, this movie's gonna work because there's just so much confidence from the director coming through in that first shot, and then everything they set up in the scene with Hogwood, the white guy who appeared who reveals to be
Yeah.
the KKK member.
Sells in the
You know,
place. Yeah.
yeah, and sells in the place, but you might not have caught this because you only saw it once, but they talk about one of them is looking at the floors, and the floors have been recently washed, and he goes, "Did y'all wash these floors?" And he goes, "Yeah," and he's like, "Why? What was on them?" And the guy spits, on the floor, spits his tobacco juice or whatever on the floor, and basically doesn't answer the question. And of course, what we learned from Remick and learned to be true was it basically was a slaughterhouse. They were, either literally killing animals there or killing something there, right? But and it
Mm-hmm.
was going to be a slaughterhouse metaphorically because they were going to kill all the black people there. Right. But I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
love
yeah.
that the movie that they had already clocked that, that little detail, and I just thought the characters were so well drawn, and then each brother having their own point of view. One is in Sammy's corner about his passion, and one wants him to stop that. I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then each brother's love story really unique and different. You got the one that had the like, he's with the white woman, and they have a sort of more immature love, right? It was more about the sex and the lust, and but because Smoke loved her, he pushed her away, and wanted her to go to the white world for her own safety. And then you contrast that with Stack and his more mature love with actually had a baby together, and they actually had a sort of more long-term plan for their relationship that fell apart because of all of that. I thought that was a cool contrast. We know about the women characters, and you kind of mentioned if they pass the Bechdel test, and I think they do. Because the test is basically it's a really what's ironic, of course, it's a very easy test to pass if you try.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because it's you have to have two
and it's possible to pass it with one scene. So it's
women
yeah, it's
characters
very much
who have a scene together. That's what I mean. It's hard. And I think Annie. I feel like Annie Dash.
yeah, I just didn't remember such a scene, but yeah, like I said, I don't I mean my main point I think still stands. There's not a ton of that. They're mostly interacting with the men. I mean, that
Well, for
that's
sure.
who that's who the primary characters are of the story. So I mean, it makes sense. And like I also said in the message, like this is a common thing. This happens in tons of movies. I've seen it a million
For
times. So it's not like this movie is like way more sexist than any other movie. Like it's not even close. It's just like
sure.
it's just not a particularly female forward story. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair, but I do think I think one of the things I liked is the female characters all have a particular agency and a particular use to the story. Even down to, the Asian character, Miss Lee, them coming to her for, what her store can provide and her painting the sign and everything, to Annie and Mary, who what I like about them is they are the keys to unlocking the vulnerability for the twins, right? Every single, the twins are like these really hard dudes, but as soon as they're in the scene with their love interest, like
Yeah.
they're really, they melt, like they're really vulnerable very easily, and in a way that makes them more interesting characters. And I think it's cool to see the women be, to unlock that, and then Annie to have agency about the mysticism. um, One of the things I really liked about the sound design in the movie is when the fantasy elements came into play. So the scene where he goes to see her at her house, um, and it's after the little young kids buy the whatever they're buying from her, and she's talking about him being back and all that stuff, and she's talking about her mysticism and all this stuff, and that he's been wearing her mojo bag around his neck and all that stuff, and he says, why couldn't your powers or your prayers save our baby? And she says, like, I don't know, but what makes you think that my prayers and my powers didn't save you and your brother in the war? And in that moment, the sound design grows and we get this fantasy thing of, you know, her voice gets deeper and the music rises, and the chant, this feeling that her power has some reality here comes through. I thought that was really cool. It reminded me of the scene in Lord of the Rings, when Gandalf is talking to Bilbo, and I think Gandalf is talking about the ring or something, and this is before he like really knows what's going on, and Gandalf goes, Bilbo Baggins, don't confuse me with the conjurer of cheap tricks, and he grows, and the lighting changes and the sound grows, and like, I was like, this is cool. Like they didn't have to do that. This is not what a normal period film would do, you know. Um, and I think the other cool thing is I think she becomes vindicated, right, later, that like her mysticism does have power, and is a thing that probably did protect them. But I liked all the characters, man. I was really pleasantly surprised that everybody got their time to shine, and even down to like Cornbread, and of course Delroy Lindo as Delta Slim had a lot of time to shine. I just thought, yeah, it was a great ensemble.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, kind of in that, Avengers vein or something where you give the characters their
Hmm.
little like thing and their like moment to use their thing, and yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it totally works on that level.
yeah.
Um so I mean, I think like they're to me, just on the first watch, like I said, if I watch it again, I might get a different impression. But like what it felt like to me after watching the first time is like that, the Michael B. Jordan's performances, I guess, it's like it's a very like movie star charisma kind of performance. You
Yeah.
know, it's very much like being cool
Yeah.
and you know, just to be clear, like I'm not saying that's nothing. That is a thing that most people can't do.
Yeah.
So, you know, like George Clooney's doing that in From Dusk Till Dawn for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you know, he's like inhabiting a space of like you know, basically being like a cool action star. Obviously, that doesn't mean they can't play any sentimental moments, and they do. Um, but like that's the core thing that I felt like they were bringing to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking about how, you know, um I like I enjoyed what he was like. I feel like he has such a forceful screen presence. It made me want him to like at some point like do you know, do like a weird character part or something, you know? Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's what I want to see, because I feel like he probably could do it, but it'd just be interesting to see that dimension because he can pull off this thing very well, clearly. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, just like I was thinking about like Tom Cruise, you know, in the old days, or Brad Pitt even, you know, like they kind of had that thing where they could play the
Mm-hmm.
cool leading man movie star character, but they could also do these weird, you know, either supporting characters or just being like kind of a low key movie, you know.
Yeah.
Um because yeah, I feel like there's a lot of potential there, and you know, I mean that just might be the kind of thing that appeals to me more than this kind of movie, but like um I appreciated him more in this than I did in Black Panther, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's just because it was more focus on him or something.
Yeah.
um but like I got a better sense, and I was also comparing it to Jeremy Irons in Dead Ringers, you know, because he's playing twins in that as well. Which is like a
God.
totally different kind of movie.
Yeah.
But just it has that element in common, because I think that's a, you know, a unique kind of acting challenge, I guess.
Yeah.
And like those characters are more different, I guess. Like I feel like these characters were different in the sense that they had different relationships and maybe some different, but like personality wise, like they were pretty close. You know,
Yeah.
like they felt like they were very, you know, in sync, like you said, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's not really a criticism, it's more of an observation. Because like I didn't know going in that I was gonna watch one of these an actor playing twins things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um they yeah, the technical side of it was well done. That's always, I mean, you know, Dad Ringers is from the late 80s, so I'm sure they did it in a different way, or at the very least with a lot less technological help than they would have had to do this. I kind of wonder how they do that now. You know, the old days it was like uh split screen or something, like you would,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like shoot it that, you know, and like have the character go and then just like overlay them or something. I think that was
Yeah.
like the standard thing. Um, but I feel like maybe now they use computers or something. I don't know. I don't actually know how it works. Um,
Yeah, they have these cameras that are kind of locked in place, and you can shoot the same scene multiple times, and the camera makes the same movement, so you can edit them digitally together. And so
yeah.
you do one
Okay.
pass with one character, and then you do another pass with the second character, and yeah.
Okay. So it's like a
I
fancier
think
version of
they
the
have,
same idea.
yeah, but I think they must have times when there's stand-ins and things. You know, when he's passing a
Yeah.
cigarette from one character to another, like somebody's got to be there
Right.
to hold it or something, or
Yeah. He can't do both
give
at the
him
same
a
time in
sideline.
one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, like I definitely didn't notice that stuff, so that was well done. But yeah, no. The characters are fun. I think like, again, just for my own personal taste, like I think I could have done with like subtract a few, like because I did feel like some of them were like more or less fodder, which like is fair game for horror. Like that's kind of standard. Um, but um, but yeah, maybe more focus on like a smaller number I might have enjoyed that more. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that. Who knows? I don't know anything.
There's only like
Um
6 main characters. There's not that many. I mean,
uh
there's the
yeah,
twins, Annie, Mary, Sammy. Those are the core 5, and then the next level is you have, Miss Lee, you have Bo, her husband, and you have Cornbread, and you have Delta Slim. So I guess Delta Slim would make the 6 core because I think he's a bigger deal than the other ones.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not a ton, but I just didn't feel like a lot of them got that much development because like of just because of the way the story was focused and structured and stuff. Like,
Mhm.
like it wasn't like, Smoke and Stack are like they get the most time for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And then like Sammy's kind of in there. I totally missed the thing that they were like in World War I. Like I didn't catch that at all.
Mm.
Um
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
that's an interesting element. But I feel like from Sammy, like I wanted more of his backstory and the stuff with his preacher father, and like all that stuff felt like a bit underdeveloped to me. Especially because I don't know, again, the title made me expect that there was going to be more of a focus on that stuff, but it's kind of just like a mild background detail. Like it doesn't really play a big role in the drama, like, aside from being the setting for that flash forward scene. But like I
Yeah.
didn't really get a sense for those characters and what they were like at home, and like it was
Yeah.
all just sort of surfacey. So anyway, that's kind of what I mean. Like I guess because they had all those other characters, there was less time. Like so yeah, I think From Dusk Till Dawn, there's like maybe 4 of them or so. It's also a pair of brothers.
Mhm.
Not twins though. And but I think like yeah, the characterizations aren't like super detailed in that either, because I think it's just a challenge to do that with this type of story, because at a certain point you're getting into action horror mode, and
Yeah.
this it's just going to be like a lot of running around and
Yeah.
like
Well, yeah, and I think that's what makes the
fighting and
movie
stuff.
Sinners better and more grounded is they took the time to give the brothers emotional backstories and something that they cared about, that they were fighting for. I haven't seen From Dusk Till Dawn since it came out. I don't remember them having anything like that because it just is a more straightforward action horror movie, and you don't need characters to have complicated backstories or complicated wants and needs in order to facilitate the story. you
Yeah.
know but Stack, pushing Mary away so that she could be safe in the white world, and Smoke, losing a baby and having that be, and you know what I mean, like those are just deep dramatic things that, like, which is why the first half of the movie is so good, right? You don't need the
Yeah.
vampires. You could actually have a version of this that doesn't even have the vampires, and it could
Yeah.
be an issue with the KKK or something as the villains, and it still would be really interesting because all the character drama is there, and that stuff is fleshed out. But yeah, back to the World War I thing. That's part of why he has those guns at the end. I mean, that is the reason why. And so there's a scene
I assumed it
when
was the gangster stuff.
uh yeah, no, but I mean, at least that's why he knows how to use all that stuff, the sniper rifles and all that. That's at least how it came across to me. Like that was the
No, it
Trump.
makes sense. I think you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
I
yeah.
just I didn't get it.
Yeah, that there's a scene when they realize, the vampires are out there or whatever, and he's like, "Oh man, we don't have enough weapons. We forgot the trunk." That's what they mean,
Yeah,
like, because that has all the big guns,
yeah,
and all the firepower. But yeah, the
yeah.
idea of those two guys in World War One, I'm like, yeah, I want to see what that's like because how did they become these people? And I love the whole cool thing of they're gangsters and they have this notoriety, and again the character stuff is just so well done at the very beginning. When they come into town and they're a little bit outsmarting the white dude, Hogsmouth, and then they get into town, and I love that each one has a mission to go get the people they need for the opening night. One goes after, to Miss Lee and gets the food, and the other goes after Delta Slim and the musicians. I like that separation, and then they each have their own like time to kind of revisit the past. But even like the character work of like when he shoots the guys who are trying to steal booze
Mhm.
from the truck. And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to shoot you, but I'm also gonna pay for you to get patched up so you're not gonna die. You know what I mean? And that's the best you can do for like a gangster character if you want to keep them being a gangster, right? Like, okay, we don't want to hate these people in the first 10 minutes and think that
Yeah,
they're, sadists or something, but it's like, hey, yeah, he's got a reputation to expect, like he's gonna make sure you have a limp because you tried to take his stuff, but he's not
yeah,
gonna like just let you bleed out on the street. So I just
right.
thought like from the very beginning, these moments were hitting very well. Like to me, that is a confidence in the writing and directing that like they're gonna, crafting these characters very specifically.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, no, I enjoyed those scenes for sure. Yeah, that was when I was fully with the movie, I think.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
I think my main like disengagement came later on.
Yeah.
Um because yeah, it's funny you mentioned because I'm nodding along going like, yeah, you could do this without the vampires and then bring the clan. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Because for me, like, if I'm cutting anything from this, even though like there's a logic to why they're there, I do understand. It's not like it's
Mhm.
not ridiculous to have the clan in this movie, but I just hated them. I just found them very uninteresting. And
Mhm.
like and everything to do with them like just didn't I don't know didn't really I didn't enjoy any of their contributions to
Yeah. Oh,
the
it's only like
movie.
two scenes.
I agree. I agree. I could have lived
Yeah.
without it. And I would say the only thing that I kind of like that I think is interesting and and yeah, this is something that I feel like there's something here that yeah, I don't exactly know how they do more with this, but this is a point that I guess I wanted to be underlined more or something. But like, so when the vampire, what's his name?
Remick.
Yeah, thank you. When Remick goes to you know, the clan couple's house at the beginning or towards the
Yeah.
beginning, you know, he's like oh, these Indians are chasing me, you
Yeah.
know, you got to let me in there, you know. And he's like playing on, it's like he knows what their
Yeah.
prejudices are and
Yeah.
he uses that against them to get in there, you
Yeah.
know. And then like later on when he's, you know, outside the club, you know, he's like, hey, you know, like join us, you know, you'll get freedom and equality and, you know,
Yeah.
like what you can't get. I mean, to me, like that idea was like super I had not seen vampirism framed in that
Yes.
way.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and but then
Yeah.
the other thought that pops in my head is, yeah, but he just used that as manipulation on the clan people. how do I know he's not just using that as manipulation here? Like telling them what he thinks they want to hear,
Hmm.
just to turn them. It seemed like they're like these vampires like turning people. I've seen many versions. It didn't seem like feeding was the main purpose for them. They just really wanted to turn everybody.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what makes Rimick and these vampires stand out. I think it's very hard to say anything new in the vampire lore at this point, but I think they managed to do that here because of the theme of the racial, issues and the whole concept of freedom, right? So, and I think what you highlight are two slightly different things. I think when Rimick clocks that the couple are a part of the KKK, he does he knows what to say to get them to let him in the house, right? Um, but he's not racist that way, and he doesn't he's not interested in them because they seem to be racist, right? He just clocks, oh, okay, I know what to say. It could have been something else, right? It could have been another object in the house that he clocked that he would just use to say, hey, I'm on your
Yeah, yeah,
side,
yeah.
we're on the same
Sure.
side, right? And as soon as he does that, he's not like, okay, now we're all racist, now we're all, it's like, no, 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 they've left that ideology behind. They're conscripted now in the Rimic vampirism. And so I think what's cool about that, his sort of, social commentary wise, is the idea of, you know, when you think about politics and you think about white people voting against their own self-interest, right? You think of a politician, a white politician saying, "Hey, you might be a poor white person, but don't you want to vote for me because I'm against these other people, right? The people you don't want to see in your town or whatever, So to me, that's kind of what Remick was doing, was traipsing in that idea of like, hey, we're more similar than not, right? And so let me in because one thing, you might not like me because I'm a stranger at your door, but I know you don't like those Indians, right? So let's just agree on, so I like that idea of like, you know, people's prejudices being used against them for their own downfall because that happens in reality. I thought that was
Sure.
cool. And then, but what Rimick's main goal is, and again, it reminded me of like Thanos, right? Which is why I kind of feel like this is like a superhero movie because we have a very grounded, though fantastical villain, right? But his goal is very, very grounded. His soul is trapped on Earth because he's a vampire. He will never get to be or see his dead relatives again because he won't go to heaven, or the afterlife. And he's drawn to music, and particularly people like Sammy, whose music is powerful enough to break the veil because or pierce the veil, because when that happens, the ancestors and the spirits from past and the future can come back and commune with you. And that's what he wants. He's been alive so long and disconnected from his family and from community so long that that's his ultimate goal, which I'm like, fucking bravo. That's amazing for because usually vampires just want to feed or they just want power and control. Now, the thing that makes his message dubious is that ultimately, maybe through no fault of his own, just the physical constructs of him being the master vampire, is that his will dominates those that he turns. So even though I think he is, authentically and earnestly offering a type of freedom, it comes with the caveat that you're gonna kind of want what he wants. And and they prove that even more in terms of that connection to him is that the vampires feel what he feels, at least pain wise, right? So I think what's cool is that dichotomy that he I think he's not just giving lip service. He's not just being a predator when he tells you what it seems like you want to hear in terms of community and you can come be with us and there's no racial issues here and all that kind of stuff. I think he's being serious, like or earnest about that. But what he's either not understanding or downplaying is that it still comes with a price of being under his control. right? And I think that's the double-edged sword. That's the Faustian bargain with him as a vampire. Is you can get all the power, you can live forever, you can be part of this non-racial community, but it's still not freedom. And that is the ultimate theme of the movie is what is freedom, right? The brothers had been searching for freedom their entire lives and trying to find it different ways. And before the end of the movie, they think freedom is can only be had through money giving you power, which is what I think Stacks Smoke says, right? Like that's what he thinks freedom is, the only way you can get it, right? But then you have Brimmick offering this other version of freedom uh, outside of the racial paradigm, right? Because no matter if you're black or you're white, if you were turned into a vampire, you're a vampire now, right? So you can let go of like the racial issues, but it's still not freedom because there's still control there. And if there's any form of control, you're not free. And I just think that's such a important question that all humanity, us as humans have been questioning forever, right? Is how do you become free and how do you become happy and what does that really look like? And I think on the social commentary part of it, you know, a lot of times white America has offered, quote unquote, versions of freedom to black people, but that always has an undercurrent of control, right? Segregation, okay, you can have your stuff, you can be over there, but actually we're going to have limits on what you can have, right? Like you know what I mean? Like all of the things of that are versions of freedom were never 100% true freedom, right? And then, of course, as we know, and have people been talking about in recent years, it's like when Black people did have the agency to create their own towns and stuff, white people came to destroy it. So I thought that part was just really well done, giving a villain not only the trope of a vampire, but giving a villain that kind of nuance and offering something people want, but it coming at a price.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so like, all right, I want to make a specific point, but I'm gonna have to ask some annoying technical questions before I get to it. So bear with me. All right, do you understand this lore? Like, I don't quite get it. So there's just some vampires that are like master vampires, and everyone that they turn or that the people that they turn are under their control. Like, is that what's going on
Well,
here?
this is just what I deduced from how the movie played out. The movie obviously didn't give us a primer on how it worked, but we
Yeah,
did
yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
we get a little bit of the general mythology because Annie does say, and I'm glad they brought this up and they brought it up as early as possible. Usually this is a question that comes later when you're like, maybe if we just kill the head vampire, everybody
Yeah.
will be free. And it's like usually that comes later in the story. So they brought that up at the forefront of the conflict. And like he asked that question early, which I thought was cool. And she goes, no, even if you kill the head one, the other ones aren't just magically lifted or, because they're dead now. They're not just going to come back to life. Like they're vampires, they're dead. They have mortal wounds that have killed them, right? Um, and so what they did show was that they have a telepathy that goes through Remick, right? Once he turns them, they're able to feel his pain and he's able to see their memories.
But
And,
even
and
even the grandchildren, you know what I mean? Because he turns people who turn people, you
what
know?
what do you mean grandchildren?
So like he turned
Oh,
some people personally, but then some of those people turned others, right? But he was
yeah,
still
it seems like he's still, it's a multi-level marketing where he's still getting
okay.
profit from the people he brought into the system. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
because
what
they're
it
not all
I
turned
mean, it
by
wasn't like
him.
it wasn't that clear, but it seems like once you become a vampire under his vampire strain, you're part of his community. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Within the okay, but once he so is he killed at the end? That's my other question.
He went out with such a literal blaze of glory that I felt like he's probably not dead because it was just too fanciful. I'm just like, yeah. I mean, it was the spirit going up in a flame of column of fire, which has some biblical references, by the way. I was reading into that. Um,
Yeah.
but this whole column of fire thing. I mean, maybe. I think it's a classic horror thing. Maybe he's dead, But I
Okay.
think it's up to the viewer to decide if you really think he's dead or not.
Okay. It's I didn't need to know for sure, but yeah, I was just curious if you thought it was clear or not. It wasn't clear to me. Okay. So yeah, so the point I wanted to make is that, we get this epilogue scene
Yeah.
where it's Stack, I think, and Mary,
Yep.
and they go visit Sammy in his older
Oh,
years in the
92.
90s, like playing at a
Yeah.
club or whatever, right? He's like
The club was
become
called Perlene's, by the way.
the club was called Perlene's. Oh, I didn't catch
Yeah.
that.
Which was
Okay.
the girl he loved, back in that night.
Yes. Yes. Oh, does that mean like he owned the club or it's just a coincidence?
I think it means he owned the club.
Okay, he owned the club and he plays there. Okay. All right. I I did not put that together. Okay. Makes sense. Right, so they go visit him, right? So like that's already a thing. But you
Yeah.
also find out that God, I'm gonna fuck this up. Smoke
Yes.
spared him. Smoke
Yes.
spared him, right? He said he said that he would spare him if he didn't go after Sammy, right? That
Yeah.
was what they
Yeah.
said.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I got my facts straight. Okay. So like to me, that like if okay, multiple scenarios. If
Yeah.
Remick died,
Yeah.
then I feel like there is a pathway to freedom via Remick's death. If
Hmm.
Remick if because that shows individual like agency, right?
Well, but
He
it's a double-edged freedom because they're still undead. They're still unable for their souls to move on. So it's a tight, So it depends on what you decide freedom is. You know, is that freedom or is freedom what Smoke got when he got to go to the afterlife and be with Annie and his son, right? Like, which
well,
one is freedom?
what is pure freedom in this life? I'm just saying, like, there's an aspect, like, I
Yeah,
guess what I'm saying is they were able to make choices that I think were not just Remix commands.
correct. Yeah, once he was dead, they were able to be free.
If he was
In
dead.
that version, that version, I think. Yeah,
So the count, so if Rimmick's not dead, then that would also suggest that even the control he had over them was limited. Like they were able to, and the fact that they were together, right? It showed that their individuality as people was
yeah.
still preserved in their
I
vampire
think that's correct.
form.
I think that's correct because you see, as soon as they are turned, I mean, and this is what another thing I love about the movie is that the bond of the brothers is there from beginning to end. So even though Stack is turned, um, when they go into the club for the massacre scene, he goes to go turn Annie so that Annie will become a vampire, and he and his brother and all of them can be vampire, double dating for the rest of eternity. You
Yeah,
know, so he still, even though he was a vampire and under Remick's control to some degree, he never lost his love for his brother. And that's always the thing you question in the vampire story, right? When they get turned, is how much of the bloodlust that they have overrides their love or whatever for their previous relationships, right? And what is the conflict inherent in that? Is it like, oh no, I'm Stack and I'm a vampire and I'm upset that I'm a vampire. I'm upset that I'm undead. Therefore, I don't want to turn my brother. I'm conflicted about turning him because I want him to have the human life because, in this version of the idea of vampirism, the human life is better than being undead, right? But like that's not what the story is about here. Like as soon as they get turned, they're like, "Cool, being a vampire is great. Join us." Like there's
yeah,
no conflict about it. And so that keeps going to the next part, which is like he wants his brother there and the undead with him, and he wants Annie to be by his brother's side. You know what I mean? So that's why he goes to try to turn him. And that's why Mary turns Stack first. She wants Stack to be with her, right, in
Yeah.
the afterlife. She could, and I love that when she just leaves, because she could have killed them all, killed them in a way that they didn't turn. If it was just about pure animalistic violence, you know, but she wanted that, but that I think Remic's version of community is authentic. I think he does want to grow that thing, but it is a viral kind of thing where just because you want it to grow doesn't mean it's benevolent, right? Just because you want more people a part of your group doesn't mean your group doesn't have nefarious goals. Because he could have, if they didn't stop Remick in the group there, they could have turned the whole town and then turned the whole state, and then like a vampire army could have taken over all of the country, right? If that's what they
Right.
wanted.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Right.
so yeah, so no, I think so yeah. Sorry, so what was your point?
So like I guess my point is that like I feel like there was some truth to his offer because like
Yeah.
for example, like they get to be together, right? That was something
Yes,
that wasn't happening before. Like they get,
exactly.
a kind of
And they have the
eternal
power
youth.
and they have a power to protect themselves from society because
Yeah.
that's why Stack wanted her to go away because he couldn't protect her from
Yeah.
a white society that would, if they found out she was part black, would harm her or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So it's like it's like it's sort of a lie, but it's also sort of true. I don't know. It's
I think
interesting to me.
it reminds me of Lost and Man in Black and the whole idea of claiming and the idea that like he can claim you and not know he did it, he's not going to take
Hmm.
credit for it, but he's responsible. So I feel like Remix offer is authentic, but he's either, like I said, either unknowing that control is there or he's downplaying the effects of his control and how that negates the whole concept of freedom, right? But I think his offer of community is for real, and making him an Irishman, and he talks about the fact that the Christians came and decimated and oppressed his people and stuff like that. I think the social commentary part from his angle is that he understands the plight of the black person, right? It happened to him, right? And of course, the whole concept of Irish people coming to America as immigrants and then getting assimilated and all that is at play too in these themes, right? But like he wants to be where the black people are. He wants to go and fellowship and commune with the black people. He isn't racist, you know. But just like the kind of idea of the white
Except against
colonizer,
humans, maybe.
yeah. Well, he's speciesist, I guess.
There you go.
Um, but just like the idea of the white colonizer, he still traffics in the colonizer spirit, right? Of I'm gonna ultimately take control and take your free will away,
Yeah.
even if I laud what you have, even if I think what you do is great. I actually want it for myself, for my own reason, right? He didn't ask. He wasn't trying to ask or offer Sammy to play for him. He wanted to take control of Sammy's power,
Right.
right? Which is
Right.
what makes him a villain, right?
That's
He
what I
didn't
was
say,
wondering
"Hey,
about. Yeah.
yeah," he didn't say, "Hey, Sammy, if you play for me, I'll give you money or I'll give you
Yeah.
whatever." He was like, "No, I just want to take your free will away and make it where you're gonna want to play for me because I have this goal of seeing my family, and my ancestors or whatever." I just think like it's just those. Everything we've talked about the last 20 minutes is what makes the movie better than normal, right? Like the villain doesn't have to be that nuanced. His promise and his allure as a vampire doesn't have to be interesting. The vampires could just want blood. They could just want food, and that's the thing. Like you mentioned, like they're not trying to eat for eating's sake, like they're turning people because they want those people with them and they want to grow their community, you know.
Yeah,
Um
I guess yeah, that so like that goes back to what I was trying to say, which is like that there is still they aren't entirely under his control. I mean, everything they're doing is not something that he's like
it's
commanding
not the
them.
board. Yeah, he's not the board queen where
Yeah.
they have programming. Like they have their own wants an agency.
Yeah.
But I think what he does is they still want the community of vampires, right? I think that's the key thing that is in his head that's making them do certain things, right? Like Bo, the Asian store owner, right? Like he wants his wife to come with him.
Right.
He's not just trying to kill her. Like he
Yeah.
does still have his previous personality. They do still have their
Right.
previous personalities. Yeah.
But there's even a limit to that because, oh God, let me get it right again. So Stack's the one who's turned, right?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So he promises not to go after Sammy, and he lives up to the promise, and
Yes.
they go back to the club at the end, and they offer it, and he says no, and they're like, okay. And so
Yep.
like
Yep.
they might want to do that, but it's not like they're just gonna do it by force, whether you want it or, you
No.
know what I mean? They can say
Yeah.
no to that
hmm
within
Which
themselves.
which seems to say that Rimmick was only turning people because that's what he wanted. It wasn't a
Yeah.
thing he had to do, or
He
like
could
he's
choose
doing it
not to do that.
because he's a vampire was compelled, and it could be a thing that he didn't do that for years. Why he didn't have a big coven before, a big clan of vampires before, right? Like maybe he just decided to do this now because
Yeah.
he needed the manpower, whatever, or he's finally lonely enough to do this. Maybe he was wrestling with the idea of turning people for you know decades or centuries or how alive. So yeah, I think those are
Yeah.
all really interesting questions, and I think the actor was fucking great, and then the characterization of him on the page, I think, really makes him one of the best vampire villains ever. Like, and for really not doing a lot, you know what I mean? Like, he's only in like
Yeah.
4 or 5 scenes, so
Yeah, it's not a ton,
like
yeah.
it's not a ton of stuff. It's like Colonel Kurtz or something where, he's only in a few scenes, but he really nails everything he's doing by the time he's on screen. And uh, yeah, man.
So like another point that I thought was interesting is that, I think he goes after the KKK people just because he's on the run. Like like I assume that it's just like kind of a coincidence. Like he happens upon this place, he's on a run.
Yeah,
So so he turns them, you know, um and so on. But like, because he's got this like ability to like share their memories or something,
yeah,
like he knows what they're planning to do, and he actually
yeah,
tells them
yep,
this is what's going to happen
yeah,
tomorrow, and it's true, like it's confirmed that it's true,
yes.
like you didn't have to do that,
He didn't have to do
you
that.
know
Which shows
like
not racist. He's not KKK like that. He's not aligned with them like that. He's not thinking this is good if they come and kill the black people for no reason. Like, you know what I mean? He
yeah.
actually was using that to as a counterpoint to like, hey man, like these people are gonna go do this to you. I wouldn't do that to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But like I thought it opened up an avenue, like because like vampire memory sharing is not a thing that I'm familiar with from the lore. Like
yeah,
it was kind of a new idea for me, but I thought like there was an opportunity there to explore that idea when you have actual KKK members and black people also, whatever, there's like the Chinese guy and so on, like, right, like
yeah,
in this community together where potentially they could shit like understand, like if they could shit, I don't know if they maybe they could only do it to Rimmick, but I feel like it
yeah.
opened up this avenue where like maybe they could understand each other more if they were able to,
hmm
like share their memories. And I don't know, I thought it
Well,
opened up an interesting world.
that's the Borg proposition. Is if we're all assimilated, then we have no need for differences, and we can have a peaceful utopia.
Yeah.
Uh, but of course, it's under the control of a board queen.
Sure, sure.
Um,
But since it's not really that, like maybe they could have the best of both worlds, you know? Like have the understanding of like really fully empathizing with someone by like actually experiencing their point of view
yeah,
and but also like they're in this shared community now. Like they are in a way the same now.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like that to me, that was an interesting point that I wanted a little more. I don't know. It was weird that there
Mhm.
were these turned KKK members, but like they don't really like because the individuality was preserved to some degree, but it didn't seem like they had it. I don't know.
Mhm.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I think it would have been hard to get that across. I think some of that is a little bit in the scene where they're dancing out in the woods. They're all one community now of vampires, but yeah, it would have been interesting
Hmm.
to have that uncovered a bit more. But it's not clear how the memory sharing is the one. But it could be whoever turns you get their memories or some, or the person who turns you gets
Hmm.
your memories, or it could
Yeah.
be that
Yeah. Yeah.
Remick gets
Yeah.
everybody's
Yeah.
memories. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
uh,
they didn't clarify
yeah, I
that,
don't
and
know.
I don't need a Christopher Nolan scene where they go on and on about how the memory sharing works and so
I
on.
need a
It's just
diagram.
it opened up an
I need
avenue
someone to
for
pull
me
out a
that
pencil.
I that like it made me think about the benefits of vampirism in a way that I
Yeah,
hadn't thought about before, and
yeah,
yes, I sort of appreciated that even while I wanted like more or at
yeah,
least like maybe I wanted to explore it in a slightly different direction
yeah,
than what they did, but yeah, anyway, sorry, one more thing I was gonna say about the vampire stuff, just on a like I found myself wanting them not to be vampires, um and just like have them be some sort of vampire-ish thing that like works in the context of this movie. It's fine, it's obviously easily accessible for the audience, we understand how to fight them and so on. But I was just thinking through like I did a little Wikipedia just in terms of like how much vampire lore was even common knowledge at that time, in the
sure.
30s, so so Bram Stoker's Dracula comes out in 1897. So that existed. I think that was like
Mhm.
largely credited with popularizing, because vampires is like more historically, I think, like a Eastern European folklore thing.
Yeah,
um like that's sort of the origin of that idea. um and that's why it's Transylvania and all that shit.
yeah.
um but the Universal Dracula came out in 1931, which is I think the year before this movie is set.
Something
um
like
anyway, it got me wondering about how
yeah,
they knew so much about vampires.
yeah.
That's a very
Well,
minor point, but
no, I think
it
it's
seemed like they
fair,
were
and
like, clued into modern vampire lore somehow.
I thought that
Anyway,
they were gonna not use the V word. I thought they were going to, because of that reason. I thought they were going to,
right.
have a different word for them, and so the word that they
Be
were
like
using
Walking Dead.
before, yeah, the word that Annie was calling before was haint, Haint,
Hmm.
which is a
Yeah.
southern mythology about like restless spirits and things like that. So she thought they were like restless spirits,
Yeah.
but then she realized they're vampire, and so I kind of wish they hadn't said the V word. I wish it would have been like we don't really have a
Yeah.
word for what they are yet. Um,
Yeah.
so popularized. But yeah, I don't
Though the
know. I don't know.
garlics and the wooden stakes and the biting, at a certain
Yeah,
point, it would probably be hard not to call them vampires.
yeah, they knew
But
she knew what to do. The wooden stakes, the
yeah,
silver, the garlic. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And that's interesting too. It wasn't just yeah, she knew and I think at least the fact that she was this, she was an expert at this stuff, at least, gives you the suspension of disbelief, right? This was
yeah.
her area of expertise and
Occult
understanding all
stuff.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it makes sense that she would understand and know what to do and all that stuff. And
yeah.
yeah, I would say in terms of things that didn't work for me so much, or I wanted more of, maybe. So one of the things we didn't talk about yet is the juke joint dancing scene, the piercing the veil. When the spirits from past and the future show up. It's one of the most impactful scenes in the movie. I loved it. I thought, I mean, this to me is where the movie reaches cinema. This the becoming not just a movie, but like this is what cinema is for. I love the whole idea of not just the ancestors, but spirits from the future coming into play. Like, and then they show you the like futuristic guy playing guitar. I was just like, fucking shit, you guys are blowing my mind here. Like, I did not expect this. And then of course, and just the sound design of blending all of the different types of music. You got the 80s, 90s DJ showing up, and then his contribution to the sound design comes into play. And then you have, obviously the like ancestral African stuff. And then I love the fact that like because there were Asian people there. The Asian ancestors showed up to the party. Like it was just fucking cool, man. I wanted that scene to last longer. I wanted it to just go on and on and on because it was like so powerful and well done. Um, the thing, what I thought the movie was gonna do that it didn't do was I thought um his real name is Miles. His character name is Sammy. I thought Sammy was going to kind of use his music as a weapon at some point.
Hmm.
Play the blues to distract the devil or to, overpower the vampire or something. I thought was going to come into play where the music was going to be a weapon or to be a foil for the vampires. And so that never happened. And then the other thing that didn't sit that well with me, I only understand it that the logistically it makes sense, but we were talking about the KKK massacre scene at the end,
Hmm.
with Stack killing all of them and being rid. I just thought like since they weren't the main villains of the movie, it was odd for that to be part of the climax or
Yeah,
the sort of second climax maybe.
yeah.
It I thought it might have made more sense for after Remick turns the first two KKK members. I thought maybe he should have gone after the rest of the clan, and so they show up as vampires and they all get killed that way
Hmm.
because now that they're KKK. So I thought like maybe that would have played more straightforward, but that being said, I think what they get out of the scene of him going against them all, showing his soldier skills, I think was really cool. And then of course, what I meant about the logistics is like he's alive at the end, right? So like how is he gonna die? He's gonna die some way. So having the shootout with the KKK makes sense, just like story wise, logistically. And then of course, what they get from that is he gets to go on and move to the afterlife with Annie and his son. And I loved when like he's dying and he's crossing over. He's between two worlds. He sees Annie on one side. He's got the dying KKK leader on the other side. And I love when Annie is like, "Hey, if you put that cigarette out." you can hold the baby. I don't want none of that smoke to get on him. And I thought, just that idea of, um, obviously, his name is Smoke, but the fact that these brothers had this sort of history of wondering if they were evil because their father was evil, and does that translate? Does it get passed down? I liked what she said, sort of a metaphorical reading of it, the idea that, like, hey, if you leave behind, because she called him Elijah, his real name, and she's like, hey, if you put down this this thing you've been carrying as Smoke, this history of being Smoke, and leave that behind in the mortal world, now you can come be with us, right? I thought that was really well done. Like, just that other reading of, if you put that smoke down, I don't want this smoke getting on him. I don't want this evil thing or this idea that you or your dad is evil being passed down. Like that's we're over that now. It's time to move on to this next part of life, so you can, put down that cigarette, or, put that leave that this smoke, quote unquote, behind you. I thought that was really well done. Um and I love when he shoots Hog, when he's like, because the dude, he's in the middle of communing with Annie, and then Hog's mouth chimes in and, let me go, whatever. He's like, okay, let me just kill you, because, like, you're interrupting my conversation with
Mm-hmm.
Annie. I thought that was pretty funny. Um, and then what you realize by the end, the fact that he let Stack live means that Stack was in the juke joint that whole time, like hiding
Yeah.
from the sun, waiting for that night. So I also think about any sequel or something of, like, what happens that night when, Stack comes out and his brother's there, his dead brother's body's there, and does he bury him and all that kind of stuff. And he's obviously going to reunite with Mary, who ran off into the night to go find shelter. I want to see. Part of it was just like, this is why we love actors, right? Because when they're cool on screen, it's just so amazing. And so, like I said, Michael B. Jordan as the twins was cool in the first shot, and at the very end, when Stack shows up with Mary and they're in their '90s gear, looking super fly, I'm like, I want to see these characters in every fucking time period. I want to see them in the 40s. I want to see them in the 50s. I want to see them in the 60s. I want to see them in the 70s. I want to see them being cool and interesting, and navigating this life as, like, these undead, cool people, and also, like, what other ways were they drawn to music maybe over the years, like, one spin-off I could see that'd be cool is, like, in the 80s, if Stack and Mary get drawn to the creation of hip hop, right, in New York, and seeing, Cool Herc, or one of the big early hip hop uh, creators, creating that music, and piercing the veil with that power, right? And, like, I could imagine, like, a scene where, the ancestors show up in that scene, right, in this hip hop party scene, and then, if Stack and Mary are there, maybe they see Smoke and Annie, right? Maybe they get to show up again in that way. So I don't know. There's just a lot of cool stuff I think they could do. What they'll probably won't do. But
Yeah.
it just lends itself to so much more interesting stories, way more than I would have expected.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
just the kind of,
totally.
yeah,
Yeah, KKK scene, just perfunctory to me. Yeah, I don't know. It does achieve a goal, but it
yeah,
just it just was a bit lifeless to me after all that. It felt weird, like a weird place to end up. It was strangely underwhelming. Um
yeah,
but yeah, I don't have a specific suggestion of how to fix that, because it, like you said, it serves a function. And then yeah, the dance sequence, when I saw it, I think I thought, like, okay, you're trying something. I see what you're doing there. interesting. I appreciate it. I guess like I my issue with it. Okay, so like there's a couple things. Like it really made me think of that movie Babylon. Um
Yes.
that like was a movie that I think you liked more than I did, and I liked this movie more than Babylon, for the record. But it had a lot of these, like, I mean, it didn't do anything like that scene, for the record, but it recalled that because it had a lot of revelry and party scenes and like very very
Yep.
elaborately filmed
Yep.
dance sequences, you know, and like I guess, like, I don't know, there's a point to it that I see what they're trying to say, but I guess I didn't really feel like the rest of the movie supported that. I guess I wanted that to be incorporated more. Like, so we get this voiceover at the beginning where they talk about, these, like, the great musicians in these various cultures, and they would
Yep.
do this music, but the music would draw these evil spirits, and it feels like that's kind of a setup for what we're gonna get, and like it's like sort of
Mhm.
true. But yeah,
Well, it's literally true. I mean,
it's
his playing at that scene did draw Rimick to them.
yeah, but I guess like it's like it was a little more. His thing was just a little. It was a little less, like, literally that than I was expecting, I guess. Um like he came because of the music. I do get that. It's just that it didn't seem to me like, um what can I say? How can I explain why it didn't feel like it was the thing they were talking about? I guess part of the thing is like the ambivalence of the movie about the
Mm,
vampires.
yeah.
Was it bad that they came? Because, like, in a way, they did offer some stuff that, like, paid off, at least for some of the characters. And, like, were they evil? I don't know. I think there's, like, some open questions there. And but I think the other thing was like I think in terms of opening the veil, or connecting to musical cultures across time and so on. I think maybe it would have worked better for me if it had been like, I get that that's the pinnacle, right? That's the big night,
Yeah.
right? That's like, that was the best night of my life. That was blah blah blah,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's, you want to make that the big thing. But I
Yeah.
guess, like, maybe it would have helped for me if there had been a hint of it earlier, if it had been like more incorporated, and if the spirits that they were experiencing there had something to do with the vampires, like either
Mm,
warding them away, or they knew about the vampires, or I don't know, like if there was just like any connection at all there, like it seemed like was implied by the opening thing. And like the little moments when they're playing music earlier, like we get just a glimpse of that, so that it doesn't just kind of like come out of nowhere. I don't know. It just seemed weird, and it kind of sits there, and like it doesn't really play a role in anything that happens after. And so anyway, like I think like it was like clearly a fun sequence to film. It was obviously technically impressive, but it just didn't, I don't know, it didn't quite land for me, I think, the way it was supposed to. So I wasn't, I enjoyed the other stuff in the movie more than I did that scene personally.
mhm. It's a scene. It's what we would call the David Lynch scene where your heart is supposed to know what's happening.
Yes.
I think it's supposed to just be you're supposed to just connect to it emotionally and understand the power of music and how, you know, the idea of that connecting you to your ancestors and connecting you to spirituality, and sort of that scene being a depiction of that, And I do agree that I think it's almost like there's a scene or two missing from really setting that up to be as powerful
Yeah.
uh as as it should be, or that they wanted it to be. I mean, I do think it's still powerful, but I think in terms of Sammy saying that was the best night ever, I feel like, again, maybe again to my other point, is I wanted to live in that moment longer if that was really going to be true. Considering that he had lived for so long and had other nights of great music, if that
Yeah.
really was the best ever, it was really that 2 minutes of you playing, because that sequence was
Yeah.
really short.
Yeah.
I think if the sequence had more setup, I also wanted uh what I wanted was a synergy between Sammy playing, Perlene singing, and Slim doing the harmonica, Delta Slim, or whatever he was going to do. I kind of
Yeah.
wanted it to
Piano
be
too, apparently.
piano. Yeah, I kind of wanted it to be the sum total of all of them together is what broke through. Yes, Sammy has the power himself, but he was catalyzed by the rest of
Yeah.
them that they all needed to be there that night. And that to me would have been, that's why Sammy said that was the best night ever, because he never had another Pauline, he never had another Delta Slim, he never had anyone to match and multiply his innate talent and power. And I think that, if anything, was missing from the scene to me, because we get, it's almost like we talk about the comic book idea in the Avengers, right? These characters do have a sort of power, right? But I think that we do see Pauline sing and we do see Delta play, but
Yeah.
we don't really see their power come into full force. And I think it should have been that scene. And I think because the scene takes a step back from Sammy being the focus, right? And then because
Yeah.
the camera weaves into all the other spirits that are playing and doing stuff, which is amazing. But it does take away from Sammy being the root of that, you know.
Yes.
So I think in that way it there's something to be said for, some other version of it. But I still, even on the second viewing, I thought it was just really powerful. I'm a sucker for that stuff though. Like I like
Yeah. That's why I
tell me
brought up
music,
Babylon.
Babylon. I mean, I think it's as technically good as that Babylon scene, that big opening scene. And the thing with the Babylon scene is it hits at the same core about how deep and important music is and how fundamental it is to the human experience and how transcendent it is. But it didn't have anything more to say after that. And I think Sinners, the scene,
Yeah.
because it set up this idea of communing with ancestors and spirits of the past and future, actually got to another level of that statement, or that theme.
Yeah.
Uh, and it made it more powerful because it had that supernatural element on top of just, here's really good music, here's really good, human beings at the top of their game doing something amazing that only humans can do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, um I definitely got more out of this than I did at Babylon, but
Mhm.
I so yeah, just for a final point on that, I do think part of it is just purely aesthetic, because like you bring up like a David Lynch thing, right? So yeah, I'm thinking like when Dean Stockwell is singing into a lamp in Blue Velvet,
Mm.
I am utterly mesmerized by that. I can't tell you why. It's like there's
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
right. There's just an aesthetic thing, and I think yeah, I think aesthetically I wasn't super moved by it, and so then that's when the thoughts start happening.
Yeah.
It's hard to like disconnect, when it's like not quite working for you on that level where you're like hypnotized by it, and then you don't have time to sit there and go like, yeah, but like why is it like this?
And
you
that's where I
know
was at. Yeah, I was in the mid. I was hypnotized by it. I was floored. I didn't see it coming, because what I saw coming was yeah, when you really play the blues or when you really hit this music, and you pierce the veil, you can commune with the ancestors of the past. Cool, got it, seen it before. But when she said and the future, and the fucking dude from space showed up on the guitar, and I said,
Mm-hmm.
holy fucking shit, you guys are about to do something else. You guys are doing something else here. Like, because again, in terms of just storytelling mythology, I've never seen that before. I've never seen this idea of spirits from past, present, and future all able to commune at once because of this idea of this music, right? Or anything. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like that whole idea is I just hadn't seen it. And then and then on top of what the movie's already doing, that's to me was that roller coaster feel of like, oh my God, like here's somebody leading you on a journey that you didn't even know you were going down. I thought I was signing up for one thing, like in Black Panther, very powerful scenes in Black Panther about T'Challa communing with the ancestors, and he goes to the astral
Yep.
plane and he gets to talk, super
Yeah.
powerful, super deep, very connecting, but like it's that next level of shit that music can transcend space and time now, which I feel like is true, like that. And that's one of the things
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I've always loved about just the concept of what music is, like vibrations in space time, and the idea of being able to record the results of vibrations in space time. And then, as it as that energy wave propagates through air, like, and to be able to play that back, forcing the air in the room to to propagate in those exact same sound waves, like literally transforming the space again. You know what I mean? Like if you're hearing music that's recorded, you're literally hearing and making the space around you conform to what it was before and it was recording by
Yeah.
changing the airwaves, right? Like that's insane, like to have a digital, not digital, but have a record of the molecules in a 3D space and then be able to reproduce that, is like an insane concept. So like I just love that it's because it feels like science fiction, you know it feels, some crazy technology that could do that, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I can record what space was like 20 years ago and show it to you, and here it is. This is what it was like, and it's somebody playing an instrument, whatever, playing a song. But anyway, yeah, I think that scene. Again, the only thing I can say bad about it was I wanted it to be longer. I wanted to live in that idea longer because it was so freaking interesting. And I wanted more to happen. To your point about interactions, I kind of wanted, everybody, all the spirits were there to party, but I was like, can y'all talk? Can we chat? Can we share information? Like, what's
Yeah.
happening in the future?
Yeah.
What's happening in the past? Like, I'd want to live in that. And to me, that's honestly the
Yeah.
hallmark of something great is when you really just want more of it. And then the director or the creator knows, like, nope, this is all you get. No, this is all you get. You get that
Right.
little bit. You don't get to have 20 minutes of the thing because that's too much.
Sure.
Um, but did you ever see Gaspar Noé's climax?
No. No.
I think you'd enjoy it. It gets at that's the juke joint scene we're talking about in Sinners. It gets at that. It gets at the power of music and the power of dance
Mm-hmm.
transcending something in the human experience. I think it's worth watching. And it has a little bit of a mystery element to it that I think helps
Mm-hmm.
the plot, helps keep you focused. There's
Yeah.
a bit of like, who did this thing?
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would say I'd recommend checking it out.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd recommend checking
Yeah, it was on my short list, or not my short list. Why am I saying that? It was
it
on
out.
my list, but that was long actually.
Yeah,
And then
log.
I kind of just forgot about it.
Yeah,
Um, who's is that him? Enter the Void?
yeah. Enter the Void and Irreversible, and yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, Enter the Void's another one that I didn't watch. I did see Irreversible, but I never really want to watch it again. because it was so miserable.
Into the Void, yeah, Into the Void is another experiential movie. I would say you have to be in a certain mindset to really enjoy it. I also think you probably want to be drunk or stoned if you really want to get into it because
Okay.
uh it's very experiential.
Yeah.
Uh and I think it helps to be non-sober so you can go to where the movie wants to take
Just
you.
go with the
Uh,
flow and not sit
and
there
it
and like
does.
overthink everything.
Yeah, yeah. You need to be able to go with the flow, and it listen. It's unique, man. It's cinema. It's 100% cinema. It does something. It's high art for sure. Do I need to watch it again? No, but it
Yeah.
was. It is. I am a huge fan of that movie, but I won't see it again for a while.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I really liked Irreversible. It was a cool movie. It was a cool
yeah,
idea. It was really well done, but it's
yeah,
just like every time I think about watching it again, I'm just
yeah.
like, nah,
Into the Void is not like that. Into the Void is a
not
whole different
today.
ballgame. Yeah, Into the Void is not. It's not. It's a whole different ballgame.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah, it's a
think
whole.
that did make me fear watching his movies again because I'm just like, do I want to feel like that right now? And
Yeah,
it's something. There's power there, but it's
yeah,
like, yeah, there's only so much. I mean, like we were talking earlier about, 12 Years a Slave, or, like misery
yeah,
on screen is like, uh, you know, I
yeah,
appreciate that there's people out there that want to push that because that is a part of life. It's just, there's only so
yep,
much I can take.
yeah.
So,
And that's what I appreciate about Sinners. You don't. I didn't. I don't leave the movie going, "Oh man, I feel so bad about racial segregation or racial
oh no,
issues."
totally.
Or
It's not that. Yeah.
yeah, you don't feel
Nah.
depressed about it. You feel
No.
uplifted and energized and partially because of the ending, with Sammy making it out and continuing his dream. I really thought, I swear I would have bet money, when you come back to that bookend scene, that opening scene of him in the church with the dad, it's like drop the guitar, leave your devil music behind. I'm thinking, well, of course he's got to leave it behind. He just had the worst night of his life.
Right.
But apparently not. Apparently he had the best night of his life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or I
Up
guess
to a
he
point.
did clarify it was before the sun went down or
Yeah,
something like that. But
exactly.
I was surprised when he said no. I'm going to take it and I'm going to go off. And one of
Yeah.
the cool things, if you'll catch it on the rewatch, is like when he comes home from doing the picking the cotton at the very beginning, and he comes into the house and he wakes the kids up so they can get ready to go to work and do whatever. He looks out in the back of the house and he sees this wide open field and this wide open world before him, and he smiles. And I didn't really catch the significance of that the first time, but the second time you see, okay, he's ready to leave. He's ready to
Yeah.
go out there, and that's what he does by the end of the movie. He decides, no, I'm gonna go chase my dreams. And what I want to know in terms of a sequel is like, what are the other times when Sammy pierced the veil? What are the other times when evil was drawn to his music playing? you know and I'd love to explore that. And the other thing I'll say that I think is also cool is that even though, because of the elements of the story, it's similar to the Robert Johnson lore about, the blues man who sold his soul to the devil at the
That's what I
crossroads.
thought we were gonna get when it was
Yeah.
like Sinners and it's about a blues
Yes.
guitarist and
Yes.
evil spirits. I'm
I
like,
love that.
okay.
Yes, I love the detail that I think is supposed to be true, that Sammy already had this power. It was innate, and he didn't need to sell his soul to get it.
Hmm.
Now, that being said, the only thing I've seen that might contradict that, I should say, and I have to go watch it again. I saw somebody make this claim in a post on Twitter, and they had a screenshot
Oh no.
of Sammy at the bar at the very end at Pearline's,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, and Michael B. Jordan is sitting next to him,
Yep.
and behind the bar is a mirror, and neither of them have a reflection in the mirror, seeming to suggest that Sammy, not that he's a vampire, but that somewhere along the way he sold his soul.
Well, I was just gonna say
Yeah,
because they offered to turn him, and he turned it down. So that's definitely
yeah,
suggests
yeah.
he's not a vampire.
Yeah, he's
And
definitely not a
he's aging too, right? He's
aging.
he's
I assume
obviously
when he smelled him and he said, it's not too long, I assume that means he has cancer. That I kind of thought that was a cancer thing.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
okay, you got cancer, you're dying soon. But it could just be an old age thing or whatever, but
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure, but yeah,
one of the
something
two.
like that.
But so that's a thing to think about, and if you watch it again to see if you can clock whether or not Sammy has a reflection in the mirror, it could have just been a weird angle of the camera
Hmm.
or intentional. I'm not sure. I don't want to believe that he sold his soul on the way because I don't know why he would have needed to
I
because he
mean,
was
is that a thing?
already
You
there.
sell your soul and then you don't have a reflection? I mean, that's not that's not lore I'm familiar
Well,
with.
well, I guess the idea is just that those without a soul don't have a reflection. So that it's more of that than So for
But
whatever
I'm not
reason, you
familiar
don't.
with that
Oh,
either. Like the
what's the
only
reason?
like
What's the reason vampires don't have a reflection? Because they're right. Isn't that why?
I didn't. Okay. Like maybe I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that was. I was familiar with the idea that vampires don't appear in the mirror, but I didn't think like that it was specifically because they don't have a soul. And I would question if they don't have a soul here also because of the stuff that happens in the movie. Like
Well,
I'm not
okay,
convinced.
yeah. Well, but yeah, I agree. But also, I think I also conflate the vampire no reflection thing with cameras stealing your soul. Like people, oh, don't take my
Right.
picture because that'll steal my soul. So I think
Yeah.
I conflate those two things and say vampires don't have a reflection because they don't have a soul, or their soul is disconnected from their body or whatever because they're undead or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe that's true, but let's just say the storytelling of the movie did not suggest to me that that was true.
Yeah.
So I feel like if there's one weird mirror shot versus the entire narrative, I'm going with the
Fair
narrative.
enough. I agree. I don't know what to make of the mirror shot. I'd have to go see it again, but it doesn't make sense to me. And yeah, so anyway, that was my point. Is I appreciated that even though it's similar to the rock, that they didn't just copy that and say, "Oh, Salmon, you sold your soul, and that's why you're so good, and that's why
Yeah.
the devil, the vampire wants you because you made a deal with him, and now
Yeah.
he's gonna come back." Like that would have been a fine movie, but I'm glad that this was more original.
That's the movie I thought we were gonna get.
Yeah.
Based on the name and then like how it opened and what the focus was.
Yeah.
I thought it was gonna be, yeah. I wasn't expecting it to become a vampire siege movie. Like
Hmm.
that was weird.
Hmm.
It was definitely a left turn from where I thought we were headed there. Even though it's not unrelated, but it's like, yeah, not they weren't
Yeah, you must
offering
have. Go
they
ahead.
weren't offering to make him a better musician, you know. That
They were
wasn't the
not.
pitch.
He was already as good as he needed to be for their purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, it must have been weird when Remick first shows up when he sort of lands right in front of the
Hmm.
house. Like, what is that? And why is he partially like scalded?
Yeah.
So how long from that opening scene did you go? Oh, it's just a vampire thing. Was it just like kind of immediate or?
No, it was forever later. It was like I feel like I didn't even get it until they said it on
So
screen.
even later, when the wife goes in the house and her husband is
Yeah.
dead and Remick has eaten him and goes, "Don't worry, he's just resting," and he gets up, you're still like not vampire, something
So,
else.
well, that like, yeah, I mean, I assumed it was some kind of demonic creature, that
Yeah.
could like do, but I wasn't, I didn't
Yeah.
see any clear hallmarks. I wasn't, he was like partially burning. I did think later, like, wasn't he in the sun? But I guess that was the point of showing that,
Yeah. The
you
sun was
know,
very low. It was low in the sky. So
yeah.
I think it's only direct sunlight that hurts them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like because I wasn't expecting vampires, because I didn't see like like the super obvious vampire stuff, I guess, it seemed to me like I was expecting demons to show up because like or evil spirits or
Better
whatever.
the
And
church
that's
stuff.
yeah, like the church and the opening narration. So I was thinking like, okay, this is like some kind of evil spirit that's coming,
God.
and like we're gonna learn how it works here. Like that's basically what I was expecting. It was a long time before I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is just vampires.
That's cool, man. Most people didn't get that experience. I would have loved to have that experience of questioning what's happening and like why and being more in the dark about like what was going on. Because I think once you go, oh, it's vampires, like it's like, oh, well, I think I know what to expect.
You
And
kind of
like
settle into a groove. That's the thing. In a way,
yeah,
like I feel like you could play the movie almost unchanged and just, like not specify that they're vampires. I mean, there are certain things like once they get into
yeah,
garlic and wooden stakes and all that, it's like,
yeah,
okay, well, that's
yeah,
obviously vampire shit. But like, like you could make minor changes, I
yeah,
think, and they could just be like a creature that's like a vampire, but like isn't
yeah,
necessarily literally a vampire.
yeah, exactly.
And like that's kind of how it was coming across to me because I mean vampires are like folkloric horror creatures. It makes sense that another one might have some elements in common, being unable to go out in the sun or what, like all that like seems you know makes sense. But yeah, no, totally. It was an advantage of not like having a clue. I did see that like it was supposed to be horror, so I knew there was gonna be like some kind of horror thing happening, but I had no idea what form, and so like yeah, it just seemed like it should be some kind of evil spirits that show up. And so that's just
Yeah,
I just figured that's what it was. And oh, they're gonna get the KKK because they're evil. And like, yeah, like I don't know. That's the
yeah,
place
yeah,
I was
yeah,
at when that scene happened
yeah.
you know but like I guess like so okay, tell me, like did he there's a scene where I guess this Mary goes out there, right, and they're like doing the song, you
Yeah.
know together, right, the three of them,
Yeah.
right? So so this is a very minor point, but that's what I like to do sometimes. Did he like teach them through vampire knowledge,
Yeah.
like how to do that
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah. Well, you
The answer is
wonder. I did
yes.
wonder. I did wonder. Were they already musicians
Yeah,
before he turned them, or did he give them a gift of music playing after he turned them? I wasn't sure.
that's what I was
But
wondering.
I thought the fact that once you join his community, I guess he's sharing his memories or knowledge about all of that stuff, the
Yeah,
music, the Irish singing and stuff like that.
yeah.
Like, yeah, Irish singing and dance. I assume that came from him. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. That's what I thought. But yeah, like that suggests like yeah, some of the sharing can go the other way, I guess. Like at
yeah,
least from him, if not
yeah,
anybody else, but still like he's not just taking,
yeah.
there's
I like
a
the I like that they didn't overuse his powers as a vampire. They have that one little shot where he starts to fly.
yeah.
His first scene, he clearly is landing
Yeah.
uh, at the house, and then the next shot, he starts to float up when he's about to attack Mary, and then that's a good setup for the very end when he shows up on the second story of the juke joint to surprise them when they're trying to escape, right?
Yeah.
But I like that they didn't really overplay that he could fly or maybe has other powers and stuff. They kept him
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I would generally agree. Um like I could have done with less spectacle, but like honestly, for a modern action movie, like it was dialed down for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
My spectacle threshold is unusually low.
One thing, this is like the most trivial thing I could think to talk about, but I don't understand why it happened.
Okay.
The scene where Cornbread goes to use the bathroom, he goes to pee outside.
Yes,
There's
yes,
a shot and they show Cornbread's penis as he's
yeah.
peeing.
I remember.
And I
Yeah,
just and I just don't understand why we needed to see that. Not that I have any problem with seeing that. I'm just like that's just a choice that you make. And I just feel like the rest of the movie wasn't like gratuitous or anything in any way with that kind of stuff. So I was just like, why was this supposed to be comedic? Is it the realism of the moment that they're trying? Yeah, I just didn't. I'm like, why? Why do we need to see that? I didn't understand. So I'm
yeah.
asking you.
I mean, I would argue we don't need to see it, but I guess you know, I guess I appreciated the unusual. I'm trying to think here. I think I've seen like off the top of my head, I can think of one, maybe two, three movies where I've ever seen a man peeing where you actually see his penis as he's peeing. Like that is
Yeah,
very, very, very rare.
yeah,
Typically, it'll be shot like from behind and you just see or they won't even
yeah,
shoot the actual pee happening. They'll just shoot
yeah,
from the waist up
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and you hear the sound. Like that's a normal thing they do.
yeah,
Like so I appreciate the fact that I mean, hey, it's a thing. People do it. I don't know.
yeah,
And it's undercovered. I mean, maybe it's undercover because like, why would you show this? But I don't know. The novelty of it surprised me because yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't
And I just
expect
thought
it.
you don't see it a lot, but I thought like in terms of my question of like why show it, to me one answer would be as if this would be gratuitous, but like if the vampire showed up and bit it off or grab or
Right. Yeah,
yanked
yeah,
it off
yeah.
or some like we're setting this up because something's about to
Like an
happen like
80s gore
gruesomely.
fest kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like that didn't happen, and
Yeah,
so
there's a Terrifier
uh,
scene like that actually. I just realized like literally guy gets out of the car, you see, and then like the clown comes and cuts the penis off. Like that's the point of the scene.
that's the point.
So
Yeah.
that would make sense totally.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that.
Yeah, and I didn't feel like the film was that kind of ultra realism in other ways.
Definitely
Uh,
not. Definitely not.
yeah,
I guess as a counterpoint, like I do feel like that opening part, like before we got into the heavy horror stuff, like I wouldn't call it ultra realistic, but I feel like some of those scenes were like pretty like
yeah,
relatively realistic, you know?
no, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
It
I mean, I
wasn't
love the
gritty,
detail. Yeah.
but
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. I love the little detail when he comes home and mom is washing the clothes in the wash tin and he
yeah.
he grabs the water and tries to clean up a little bit with it and like just that those little things I think were
Yeah.
realistically grounded for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. It didn't really seem like wrong to me, but like, yeah, I think I mean, if you don't shoot it that way, I don't think the movie really changes much.
yeah,
I wouldn't like kill for that scene to be like that, but like, I don't really mind it because, it is one of those things like it is interesting to me like those things that like to a large degree like so many people over such a long time in cinema have chosen to hide you
yeah,
know and
yeah,
that's definitely one of those things.
yeah. And maybe like the director, maybe Ryan would say, showing the penis in that scene makes Cornbread seem more vulnerable or something than if they did
Yeah,
hide
yeah, yeah.
it. Or, I'm sure there's some reason, they would have needed to discuss it and talk about it. But when I saw it, I was just like, oh, why are we seeing that? Because again, like it's so rare that you see that. And I'm like, why are we seeing that? Do we? Because it's you don't need it to convey the fact that he's peeing.
Right. Yeah, 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 yeah. We're gonna know. But yeah, vulnerability definitely makes sense if you, yeah, sort of realize there's a threat and yeah, like once you're there, like you're very compromised and it's like this very vulnerable. I could buy that as an argument. It didn't
Yeah.
occur to me, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, cool, man.
I'm glad you brought that up because I would not have thought of that particular moment. But it did strike me when I saw it because it was like that's weird. Like that's something you would not see in Avengers.
No, well, you certainly wouldn't. They've shown some butts, but they're not going to show a
Yeah.
penis.
No, 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 no. I mean, yeah, seeing a penis at all is like pretty rare.
Uh-huh.
In like anything. So
Or
yeah.
or put away your hammer.
Which one?
I know, right? Yeah. Hawkeye is that an arrow, or you just happen to see me?
Why can't it be both?
Exactly. Let's just rewrite the Avengers. It's just a bunch of dick jokes the whole time. Tony, I see you're Stark. Jarvis, give me a hand. With pleasure, sir. I don't know. I don't know why Jarvis said that.
I don't
Um,
either. And then it's weird when it's like Vision later. Like, are they going to talk about that? Like, it's a whole
right.
thing.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, glad we got to talk about Sinners. It's my favorite movie of the year so far. A few months in, but
You know what? You know what? Are we talking movies released this year?
yes.
I think it's the only movie I've seen released this year, so I'm gonna say
Hey,
it is also my favorite movie released this
hey,
year.
look at that. Look at
And
that.
I don't mean to give it fake praise. I'm just being honest about what I've seen this
Yeah,
year, which is
yeah.
almost nothing. So
I've seen quite a few
anyway,
movies this year, and it is hands above. I mean, I saw Mickey 17, from the
yep,
guy who did Parasite. I was
yep,
underwhelmed. It was decent, but I was underwhelmed. I saw
yep.
Soderbergh's Black Bag with Kate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender. I was
Mm-hmm.
underwhelmed. You should
Yep.
watch that and then be like, why is
Okay.
this movie so short? It's like
Okay.
I think it's like 85 minutes. Like something's
Okay.
wrong with it. It's like way too short. It was good, but it was too short and like nothing happened.
And they just,
Uh
yeah. Okay.
yeah.
That's interesting.
The only other movie I've loved so much, and this is it's a comedy, so I don't really want to compare it to Sinners, but uh uh One of Them Days, starring Kiki Palmer and
Oh yeah, yeah,
SZA.
yeah. You
It
mentioned that.
basically
Yeah, off the
I
podcast.
I
Yeah.
I've seen it 3 or 4 times now. Like hilarious. The best comedy I've seen in a long, long time. It's the same way I felt like it captures what like the original Friday captured. Like lightning in a bottle, like, oh my God, this is so funny and original and interesting, and this life quality to it.
Yeah.
Uh you know Again, another movie that takes place in one day. So there's something about a shortened time frame that really helps movies get that urgency.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Do the Right Thing is a one day movie as
There
well.
it is. One day. That's all you
It's
need.
it's it's a structural idea that can work pretty well
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, yeah, yeah. I should check that out. I mean, I should check out more things in general. It's just been, I don't know, a slow year. I watched more last year.
And you're
Yeah,
watching
and I
TV.
think
You're watching a lot of TV stuff.
my favorite movie from last year was Challengers. I recommend it to you all. Seriously, if you think you don't want to watch it, you might be right, but you might be wrong because I thought I didn't want to watch it, and then I watched it multiple
Okay.
times, and I think that movie's really good.
Wow.
So
Okay. I'm gonna have to watch it. I'm gonna have to watch it because I
full
know I'm not gonna like
recommendation for that.
it.
It's a
Okay.
tennis movie, sort of.
All right. I'm holding out hope.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I can't guarantee you'll like it as much as this because obviously
Yeah.
it's like nothing like this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a little more in my wheelhouse of the way the kinds of movies I gravitate towards.
Yeah, yeah.
So you know, but I think it's like it's so much more interesting than I expected, and I love all the actors, and I realized that Zendaya is actually a good actor. I think you know, I felt like she was I hadn't seen her in a lot of stuff, and I think she was like very underused or whatever
Mm-hmm.
in Dune, you know, like she didn't really have
Yep.
that much to do, and so it's just like she's just like there. I don't know.
Yep. Yep.
Um Challengers, fucking amazing. I
Okay.
absolutely love her performance in that movie. It blew my mind, and I was like, okay, I get it now. I'm on
Yeah, yeah,
board.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I
Oh,
would
she's
watch
good.
her do stuff. Like I'm
Yeah.
totally there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, listen, I'm a Zendaya fan. I will watch it for her and hope
Yeah.
that she unlocks the key for the rest of the story and movie to be interesting. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's basically three characters in the whole movie. There's barely anyone else that ever talks.
yeah. Okay.
So, like they're carrying the movie, so she's got a big chunk of the movie for sure. Obviously the other characters do too, so you'll have to care about them if you're gonna like the movie.
Yeah.
Um, the dynamics are interesting, and I think you'll at least see why I like it, even if you don't like it yourself.
Gotcha.
So,
All right.
so yeah,
Well, cool. Well, glad we got to talk about Sinners. Thanks for
me
listening,
too.
everybody.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
go watch it if you haven't seen it. Spoiler
yeah.
alert.
Hey, go check it out, y'all. Yeah, if you're one of those weird people that likes to listen to a bunch of spoilers before you see something, which you really shouldn't do for this movie, but it's too late now, isn't it? So why am I
Yep.
telling you this? That's my thing.
Until next time.
All right, see you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.